Am Yisrael Chai. Well, it's been a formidably engaging 6 weeks. It seems that we say that every time, both domestically and internationally, and that's reflected in today's extended agenda. And thank you for making the additional time to be with us today of that period. I want to, in my opening comments, reflect on something specifically that's happened in the last couple of weeks, and that is, of course, Kanye West, his invitation to address the Wireless Festival. And what we've sent out over the last few weeks in our activism is a clear message. It doesn't pay to be a Nazi. This is not about Kanye West himself. We are sympathetic to the challenges he has around mental health and so on. But the place to test this is not on the main stage at the Wireless Festival. And that is why we worked very hard. We worked very hard, partly to do with the memory of those who were killed in the Holocaust and to our wonderful and inspiring survivors, to make sure that we would not allow that to go ahead. We mounted a formidable campaign. I want to really pay tribute to the whole team at the Board of Deputies, our honorary officers, our staff, Adam Martinit and David Robinson, who were on time during Chol Hamoed, where they were supposed to be off, or at least semi-off, were busy kind of booking it in, working with government, politicians, different media outlets. We canned Kanye and we tied wireless in knots, and it was important that we did so. I want to also be thankful to our interfaith partners. Some people sometimes question the importance of the work that we do, but seeing imams, many imams that we've been working with over a long period, coming out in favour and supporting our community was really important. And seeing support from different political parties. The government, the Labour government, the Prime Minister Down called this out. The Home Secretary, in the end, banned Kanye West from coming to the country. The Conservative Party, too, very strong engagement on this. The Liberal Democrats, the day after I was on Newsnight, Ed Davey was calling for Kanye West to be banned from the country. And the SNP were unsure, but they got to the right place in the end. That was important. But there are some other parties who I think did not show themselves in the greatest light here. And without mentioning names, there is a political party whose main political platform is keeping people out of this country, but they seem to be prepared to make an exception for a self-proclaimed Nazi. The same political party declares themselves to be patriots, people who want to be proud of Britain's history. But just so that they can be reminded of this, Britain's history was fighting the Nazis. It was suffering at the hands of the Nazis who bombed this city and other cities around the country. It is not patriotic to be soft on Nazism. We need to confront it. We need to confront it in every generation. And other political parties who just a few weeks ago were very prominently involved in what they called the Together Alliance march against what they called racism and against the far right and against Nazism. Where were they? Where were they when an actual self-declared Nazi turned up? They were absent without leave. They were not engaged. It is really, really shameful because actually some of these parties, and frankly, some of these parties have yet to meet an anti-Semite they don't like. They're yet to condemn and find proper fault in that. It's really, really wrong. And whereas some parties are working on keeping racists out of their selection lists, these parties seem to be inviting racists in. It's absolutely shameful, and we'll stand up against it. Friends, I want to be clear about this. If you're looking for patriotism, if you're looking for anti-racism, you should look in this room. You should look in our community. Anti-racism is as we are. We're tough. We're incredibly tough on anti-Semitism and fighting anti-Semitism wherever it is found. We're also tough fighting anti-Muslim hatred, anti-black racism, homophobia, misogyny, extremism of different kinds. Those are proper and decent British values. And similarly, if you're looking for patriotism, I'm very proud to stand beside this flag. I'm very proud of it. But British values are remembering our history, remembering who we fought, remembering that the Nazis will never be part of our society. We stand strongly against that. We stand for it always. And it's particularly appropriate as we approach Yom HaShoah tomorrow. And you'll see the candles there. And I really would encourage you, all of you, to attend Yom HaShoah tomorrow, the event either in London or events around the country, because it's really important we remember. Do you know, it's because we remember And it's the importance we put on remembering that I am confident in our future. It's really important to remember the past to ensure a strong future. Now, it is a very full agenda today, and just so a couple of points that I would like us to make. First of all, you'll see that for the first time on the front bench over here, we have both Louise and Karen. And again, congratulations to Karen on her election. I also want to thank Sheila again for running an excellent campaign and her continued service to the organisation. You are really, really valued to us all. Thank you very much, Sheila. And you'll have noticed that the election throws up a couple of vacancies, which I'd just like to put your way. First of all, for another independent chair for the Board of Deputies, opportunities to apply for that, so please do think about it if you haven't yet. And also on the Constitution Committee, there is a vacancy there as well, and we've put out papers for both those positions. Please do consider them if you haven't yet done so. But as I said, it's an incredibly full agenda, and really importantly, we're really delighted shortly to be welcoming Rabbi Wittenberg, Senior Rabbi of Masorti Judaism. We have, and you'll have seen the tote bags, Jewish Culture Month, a presentation by our brilliant Director of Culture, Liat, shortly ahead. An open forum on the Disability Commission. Delighted to have my distinguished predecessor and friend, Vivian Wyman, to talk us through that. New speakers program, Plymouth has applied to join the Board of Deputies, and also, of course, a very important discussion on the situation in the Middle East, in Israel, Iran, more broadly in the Middle East. Very important that we talk through that whole situation. I wanted to make sure, Deputies, that we had time for that, and that's why we've extended the meeting. I also want to say a huge and hearty mazel tov to Jerry Lewis. We've dedicated some time today to celebrate 50 years of our father of the board. Let's give him a round of applause. There'll be time to do it again later. But mazel tov to Jerry on that milestone. We have some, as always, some condolences, particularly including Julian Pollard on the sad loss of his wife Joan a few weeks ago, to Deputy Bruce Greenberg, who's here, on the loss of his wife Catherine last week. Incredibly sorry about that, Bruce, and you've got all of our embraces. I also wanted to reflect briefly that Lord Beecham passed away last week, a great titan of North East Jewry, and I know that we might have some comments from Simon about that later on today. We had some Refuah Shalema messages to pass on Susan Pascoe's father, to him, to Johnny Weinberg following his operation. I heard he's on the mend and he's recovering at home. That's really good to hear. And some mazel tovs to Deputy Lawrence Jacobson, I saw just this week on becoming a grandfather, to Deputy Pauline Grant on her son Daniel's marriage to Gemma Gallet, to Deputy Jonathan Mateless on the birth of twin grandchildren, seeing the pictures, they're very, very cute, to Deputy Philip Goldenberg on his upcoming 80th birthday, very sprightly 80, I'd say, Philip, to Deputy and past Senior Vice President David Mendoza-Wilson, and past Deputy Melissa on the birth of their son Leo, which we were delighted to hear about. To Deputy Joshua Garfield and Stephanie on bringing baby Maya home from hospital. Really, really pleased that Maya's home. And just one I got today, Deputy Michael Reich on the engagement of his granddaughter Gemma to Matt. Mazal tov all. And with that, I pass over to Louise to take us through the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil, for that powerful introduction, which I think reflects the effective work of the board and the hard work that so many people are doing. Now, there are a number of points I must draw to your attention before we proceed with the rest of the agenda. Fire alarm instructions. If there is a fire alarm, you have to stay here and we will be rescued by JW3 staff. I hope you've all enjoyed the Kiddush today. It was sponsored by the board to mark the 50 years of service to the board by Jerry Lewis. When you're speaking, remember, be polite if you can, and definitely no slander. The meeting won't be live streamed, but it will be recorded and that will be released in a few days. And I remind you, we do have members of the press on the call. And I ask deputies online to remember to change the name on Zoom to identify themselves, no iPad 3. I do want to encourage people who haven't spoken before to speak in this meeting, and I'll remind people when they do come to speak to come to the front of the queue if you haven't spoken before. We do want to hear from you. And I'd ask all deputies to adhere to the accessibility guidelines included in the information pack when you're speaking. Well, the first item of substance in the agenda now is a very important one, addressed by Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, Rabbi Emeritus at New North London Synagogue and Senior Rabbi of Masorti Judaism. Michael.
Thank you, deputies. Many of you will know there's a very important Mishnah from Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Father, which says, "Aselecha rav uknelecha chaver." Acquire for yourself a rabbi, make yourself a rabbi, and acquire for yourself a friend. As many of you know, I have been a member of New North London Synagogue on and off, apart from when we were in Israel, since 2002. And it has been a tremendous honor to have had Rabbi Jonathan as my rabbi and certainly as my friend as well for all those years. He is a remarkable man. And I want to share what's one thing with you. I go around the country a lot, and I often go into synagogues from progressive to strictly Orthodox. In many, many synagogues, when people find out that I'm a member of New North London, they will say, "Oh, that's Rabbi Jonathan. He's wonderful, isn't he?" Yeah. And that shows us a rabbi whose impact on Anglo Jewry has been way beyond the denomination they're actually a member of. And we at New North London are both very sad that Rabbi Jonathan chose to retire at this time, but also unbelievably grateful to him and wish him every success in the many other things that he does for our community. Of course, for Masorti Judaism, where he remains a senior rabbi, but also on many, many issues so important to him and to all of us. The environment just being one of them. And of course, Rabbi Jonathan founded Eco-Judaism, which was hosted by the board for a number of years before it went off and became its own charity. I'm not going to do a big biography of you. You can all read that online in many places if you want to. But it is a tremendous privilege to ask Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg to come and share some remarks with us to mark his retirement from New North London and in his position as senior rabbi to Masorti Judaism. Rabbi Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the very, very generous welcome. I want to just appreciate, from my perspective, the work of the board. I am a Radio 4 listener when I'm driving along, and the first voice on the news is yours, Michael. And the way you articulated the understanding of Kanye West's visit, that we are open to people's apologies, to engage in conversation, concerned about mental health, but this is not a bargaining counter for coming to that festival. It was so thoughtfully put, and I felt it did the whole image of the compassion and wisdom of Judaism so proud, and I was deeply moved by that. And it's not just in public. I also get personal advice from many people on the panel, from Toby Green as well, and I really value your work. Thank you for being here for all of us and all our communities. I'm speaking now very much in general rather than specifically in the name of Masorti Judaism or Eco-Judaism. And given the fact that we're approaching Yom HaShoah tomorrow night, I want to begin, as is appropriate for a rabbi, with some Torah. Then I want to talk a little bit about the challenges of the scene here, which I hear from my community and from all over, and I'm sure are very familiar to people, and a bit about the challenges in relationship to Israel, which are so perplexing and so painful over this period of time. One of the few and great pieces of Torah to emerge from within the Shoah are the writings of the Rebbe, simply known as the Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto, Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapira. He buried his works in the ghetto in January 43. They were found by a Polish construction worker. Later by the Rebbe's relatives in Israel. The Rebbe was murdered in November 43. And one of his first pieces concerns the importance of discourse, of having a voice within community, which is what the board is all about. And he takes Joseph's dream of the sheaves, the Hebrew for which is alumin. But in typical Hasidic fashion, he plays with the word because Elaim means dumb, silent. And he says there are two kinds of words for silence in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew. One is charisha, silence. That's sometimes the kind of silence when you've got to speak. You must not be silent. Like when Mordechai says to Esther, you cannot be silent now. But ilmut is when you're so oppressed that you can't find the words. And he says sometimes there are periods when you have to simply bear it. You bow your shoulders, you say nothing, you think this will soon pass. But other times are, and he quotes Joseph's dream, ma'almim alumim. People make others even more silent by the horrors they inflict. This is where he finds himself at Rosh Hashanah 5700, 1939, 1940. His only son, has just killed in the bombardment of even before the ghetto was created, in the bombardment of Warsaw, and other relatives. He says, I am totally silenced. And we are pushed into the silence. But I realized that with such oppression, one can't remain silent. One has to speak up. And he says, V'hinei kama aluti. It's Joseph's dream. It means my sheep arose and the other sheaves gathered down. And he said, he stands it as silence, said, arose out of my silence. I would not be dumb. When I began to speak, your silences you put around me. And we recreated community of Torah. That's in 39. He goes on teaching till 43. And this is appropriate because tonight is Yom HaShoah, but it's also appropriate because in many places and ways, I find the community struggling to know what to say, how to speak to each other, how to find the words. And there are three things I want to say about that. The first is that community, discourse, never mind our political opinions, it is our strength. It's our spirit, discourse around Torah and community. It's our strength. It's our solidarity. It's our way of caring for each other. And it is the secret, the profound resilience of Judaism. And Judaism, tough times as we are in now, nothing not resilient. So that sense of kama amati, I rose up in my silence and we created ways of speaking in the community is really, really important. But it's also important across with other faiths. And Phil, you mentioned that. And actually, often below the surface, relationships have not been broken by what has happened. I've seen this very powerfully in the environmental field. When I walked from my synagogue on Shabbat in the huge pro-nature, pro-biodiversity demonstration in Whitehall, 70,000 people, I was nervous wearing a kippah. Two imams came towards me, embraced me. Those relationships, that of course is more important now than ever. And the complex discourse between us in the diaspora and Israel is more important than ever. The way we support our friends, the way we support our family, the way we engage with people who have gone through things that most of us in the room have not passed through. So that sense, kama alumati, I will be silent, really, really matters. Something about the politics here, and then something about Israel, and then I close. The Board of Deputies has this complex role in a difficult time of negotiating with parties whom you carefully did not mention. Yeah. One is not the color blue or the color red. And one is another word for repair. Shall I put it like that? Neither of them have been Jewish friendly, and both of them have had policies which cut against the fundamental values of the dignity of every human being and the openness to all human beings that we so profoundly believe to be at the core of our Judaism. And yet I'm aware that the board has to listen to everybody, talk to everybody, find a path round and through people where it is not easy. And I want to honor that work. It was the work in some aspects of the Stadtland in the medieval world, to use subtle and sometimes slightly, under the surface forms of diplomacy. This is open, this is public, has dignity to it, but it's a really important and challenging piece of work. And it has to be done to bring us as many allies as possible and as few people who will not listen to us as possible. And I think whatever our denominations, all rabbis need to be supportive of that work in whatever ways that we possibly can be. And I want to honor it and appreciate it. That's about here. About Israel, well, we know that isn't easy. And in this room, there will be many kinds of opinion. Again, I would say we can't be silent. People say keep religion and politics apart. And that's true to a degree, but Judaism is concerned with the ethics of the public square. And the ethics of the public square are exactly what the term polis, which is a city, means. So there's no clear separation. And in the story of Sodom, which will be familiar to people from the Torah says, Abraham says to God, if there are 50 people within the city. And the commentator Ibn Ezra says, we know what city it is. Why within the city? He said, if there are 50 righteous who care about the affairs of the city, who engage, who talk about it, who are committed, that can save the city. But people who say in private, that might save themselves, but it won't save the city. There's a battle going on for the soul of Judaism. And whether we like it or not, we find ourselves as Jews often represented by the actions of the most extreme figures in the Israeli government. And I think the board has been vocal about settler violence on the West Bank. Across the board now, across the religious denominations in Israel, people are being vocal about. It is essential to be vocal about that. Before I came here, I had a conversation with Arik Asherman, who says, I want more people on the ground in protective presence. We do not want to be represented by people who steal, murder, and burn. And we need to be vocal about the death penalty for some. This is an outrage against the core values of Judaism. And there is, with this I'll conclude, a real struggle going on for what is Judaism. I'll put it very simply like this. The first statement about humanity is a statement of equality in dignity and creativity. Every human being is created in God's image. The next statement is that we are trustees of God's earth, all together, whoever we are. That is the basis that has seen Judaism through with its profound religions, with its profound resilience, through centuries and centuries, sometimes of difficulty and sometimes of good grace. And that's the Judaism that we need, and that I think the board has to be a very strong voice for. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rabbi Wittenberg, for those profound thoughts. Phil.
Well, I think that's just a reminder of how lucky we are to have such a brilliant leader as Rabbi Wittenberg in our community. A leader whose humane Torah and Jewish values have always been a hallmark of his ministry, both at New North London and in the wider Masorti movement. And whilst, as Michael rightly says, New North London, it was sad to see him go. I'm delighted that Rabbi Wittenberg is unleashed to do more of the brilliant stuff that he is able to do across so many fields. I've had the pleasure of working with Rabbi Wittenberg both on the environment, on interfaith, where you're a really noted leader, hugely respected across different faiths, different spectrums. We are so lucky to have you. And I think you're absolutely right to say that we need to apply those values here and internationally in Israel as well. And in confronting the challenges that are before us, strengthen solidarity and the resilience that we have. I just want to say a huge thank you for everything that you do, everything you represent. Thank you once again, Rabbi Wittenberg, for being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. Approval of the minutes. Do you agree the minutes of the 1st of March is a correct record? Agreed. Thank you. The next item is questions to the President and honorary officers. And if you wish to speak, please would you come here? And anybody who hasn't spoken before, please would you come to the front of the queue? You'd be called there.
Yeah?
Okay, thank you. Right.
Let me know what you want to take and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Toby Millis, under 35 observer, Bromley Reformed Synagogue. This question gets asked time and time again and deserves further articulation. Now that it is known that the incoming Ayatollah, Mojtaba Khamenei, has some sort of presence in the United Kingdom in terms of owning property and various other things that relate to the IRGC, can the board further articulate what the grounds are for the government to prescribe the IRGC?
Right. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. This is not a question, it is a little story. You may have seen in the Daily Mail recently an article about a Green candidate, or a candidate for the Greens, holding up a placard saying Israel killed all these people to justify homicide, referring to October the 7th. Just so happened that he was standing for my ward, Forest Hill, and that Forest Hill people know each other. And somebody identified him, told the local Labour Party. The mayor wrote an extremely excellent, strong letter to Zach Polanski. The local MP chipped in. He has been whatever it is. He is no longer standing for the Greens. And funnily enough, it was too late for them to find a substitute. So thank goodness we've only got 2 standing for the ward rather than 3.
Thank you. Michael Conn, online. Michael Conn.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Michael Conn, Wimbledon Synagogue. This is a paraphrase of a section of the government definition of anti-Muslim hate. Anti-Semitism is also the prejudicial stereotyping of Jews, treating them as a collective group, irrespective of their actual opinions, beliefs, or actions as individuals. If we or any other group do not want to be stereotyped, then we should not hide the plurality of views within our community and wonder why the rest of the world treats us as monolithic. It does not take a governmental non-statutory definition to change this. It's within our grasp and that of all communities to challenge polarizing characterization. My question to the board is this: when are we going to have an open debate about how we can be leaders in social cohesion by more openly showing our plurality of views in the public discourse and the strength of our ability for self-reflection? Thank you.
Right, thank you. Next speaker, Sheila.
Thank you, Louise. Sheila Gewolb, Cardiff United Synagogue. So, first of all, a quick shout out, please. Everybody, we're having the first regional lunch for men and women next week in Manchester, Sunday the 19th of April. Sarah Radovan, who works for the boards, very kindly offered her home. Please, we've got half a dozen people, bless you, half a dozen people coming. On the back of the successful lunches we've been having for over a year in London, I'm starting to do them in the regions. We will be having another one in South London at the end of the year as well. So that's the thing. My question is really important. We have elections for the Welsh Senedd on May the 7th. Previously, the board has held hustings in Cardiff, my synagogue, Cardiff United Synagogue. I have heard nothing from the board about any plans to have hustings. I've been contacted by members of my synagogue. Please, can the board let me know what is happening along these lines? They were really successful last time. We need to support the South Wales community. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Pascoe, online.
Thank you very much. Susan Pascoe, SRL Community. I also wanted to refer to the local government elections. So in your speech, Phil, that only mentioned briefly, and I know that the local government, that the board's manifesto will be published very shortly, but it's a matter of extreme concern to so many in the community that Gaza is being used as a campaigning issue to gain votes. And as we know, the anti-Israel stances taken by those candidates and parties leads to increased anti-Semitism, from which we all suffer. And I know the manifesto was prepared at a time when it wasn't clear that this would become a major issue or an issue in the elections. So my question is the board's strategy. What is the board's strategy for dealing with this? And if you can give wider reflections on the elections. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Susan.
Harry Lamper, under 35 observer for St Albans Masorti Synagogue. Obviously, we've just had Pesach. We've been reading. We read the Haggadah, in which we meet the characters rabbis Eliezer, Ben Azariah, Tarfon, and Akiva. But in Mishnah Makot, they discuss the death penalty, with Rabbi Eliezer Ben Azariah stating a Sanhedrin which puts a person to death every 70 years being described as destructive or murderous, and Rabbis Tarfon and Akiva stating that had they sat on the Sanhedrin, nobody would have been put to death. Are we to believe that the current members of the Israeli government are more learned and enlightened than those that we go to learn from to this day? And how are we as British Jews meant to feel about what is very clearly a two-tier law that is being put in place by people who claim to represent us? And separately, in my last 10 seconds, for any young Jews who are inspired by Jessica Meyer on the ISS and Reed Wiseman on the Artemis 2 mission, who end up being sent to space over something like Pesach or another festival, how should they be counting the days of that festival?
Thank you. Mark Drucker, online.
Reading Hebrew Congregation. When the officers contacted Good Morning Britain about Ed Balls, did they speak to them about Adil Ray, who's a presenter who always shows his contempt for Israel and Zionism? And when the officers spoke to Melvin Ben about Kanye West at Wireless Festival, did they speak to him about Kneecap at the Reading and Leeds festivals?
Thank you. Right, next speaker, please.
On a lighter note, we held Jane Ginsburg, Seven Hills Shul, Sheffield Reform. We held our civic Shabbat yesterday. Guests included the Chief Executive of Sheffield City Council, the Council's Equalities and Engagement Officer, representatives of Medina Mosque, the Church of England, the Methodist Church, and the Quakers. We'd sent out the Board of Deputies booklet on civic Shabbat to our guests in advance, and we supplied them with our own short guide to Shabbat services when they arrived, in addition to explaining the proceedings as we went along. We had good representation from our own congregation too. We've already had great feedback on the service, even though the parasha was particularly challenging, and people were very enthusiastic, particularly about the Kiddush and the bring and share lunch. It would be great to know if the board will support a similar initiative next year, or if this is something we should plan on our own. Thank you.
Linda Sharp, online.
Linda Sharp, Finchley United Synagogue. Two items. One was about an article in the Daily Telegraph last week about children singing Hebrew songs being spoken about as baby killers. And also, my brother's involved with education, and he's showed me the two books that are for GCSE subjects, and also a picture of a magazine for education with Yasser Arafat on the front, almost in hello style. Is the Education Committee doing anything about this, especially the syllabus for the GCSE religious studies, which is very anti-Israel?
Okay, thank you. Right, Zev.
Zev Portner, Maidenhead Synagogue. Sorry. Just a quick one. In relation to the Kanye West issue, what engagement was there with black community leaders? And as you know, I'm a strong supporter of the Optimistic Alliance, which is a relationship between the Muslim and Jewish community. Are there any plans for the board to enhance its relationship with the black community and to do work with the black community? Because as well as the Optimistic Alliance, I recognise there's limited funding and resources, but I'd like to see a black Jewish alliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right.
Okay. Michael Reich, Mosaic Reform Community in Stanmore Hill. I was horrified in the last month that I think the most unbelievable anti-Semitic art exhibition taking place in Margate. Drawings by it was called Drawings Against Genocide by Matthew Collings at the Joseph Wales Studios. How is it possible that such an item can be put out there without the local council doing anything about it, the government doing anything about it, the fact that that particular so-called gallery can continue to show anything when they can see the blatant anti-Semitism in all the pictures that were shown? I don't think even under Goebbels something so terrible was shown as was shown there. Could we please see how we deal with that in the future?
Right, thank you. Right, Phil, would you like to start?
Thank you. I know colleagues are going to take on a couple, and particularly the international ones I know Adrian's going to speak to. In terms of the local elections, we're going to be putting together a series of manifestos for those elections, local government elections. They will deal with many of the issues that you've spoken about, Susan. We're doing a Welsh Government, Welsh Senedd elections manifesto as well, Sheila, in Welsh as well. There will be a hustings in Cardiff. My colleague Joe Crossley says to be in touch with him. We're going to look to work with you on that. So thank you for the question. In terms of the fuller engagement we're going to be doing manifestos regionally and across the country. We're going to be doing hustings in a number of different places. We are also, because this is becoming such a big issue, we're going to be dedicating more resource to it. Victoria Lisek, who you may have met at the back, is going to be taking on a more designated role around both religious freedom and local government because of all the issues that are there. So it's something that we are keeping a close eye on, and we're conscious that after the next set of local elections, our political landscape may be even more diverse than it has been. In terms of the death penalty, that actually Aidan's going to cover that one. Michael, I'm very glad to say, because you asked about open debate, there will be actually at this plenary an open forum on the different views across our community around positions around the Middle East. I expect there'll be a diverse range of views, but it's important to us that we do hear that diverse range of views, and thank you for that question. Jane, delighted to hear about Civic Shabbat in Sheffield. Yes, we'll continue to support it. Glad that the resource was useful. I guess to Linda's questions about some of the things we're seeing, you'll be aware that we were advocating to the government for a special inquiry on anti-Semitism in education that will cover, among things, that our Director of Public Affairs, I believe, and indeed our Vice President, Karen, met with the chair of that commission a few weeks ago, and we've been engaging with the Permanent Secretary at the Department for Education, and we'll be engaging on that commission and that inquiry on a sort of constant basis. It's very important that we do. Zev, absolutely agree with you. We'd love to do more outreach to black community groups. We've got a few different channels that we do for that. There isn't an equivalent organisation to the Board of Deputies. It's a kind of series of different things, some of which are religiously led, black-led churches and mosques, for example, organisations like Operation Black Vote and so on. But we do have a range of contacts that we look to. And yes, with more capacity, we'd love to do more in that space. I think it's very important. To Mark's question, we are establishing stronger relationships with ITV, and I think your point about Adil Ray is something that we'll certainly be looking at. Melvin Ben, we haven't yet had a conversation with Melvin Ben. There was due to be a conversation, I think, towards the latter end of last week, but was postponed. We certainly will be raising NECAP and indeed Bob Villan, because he's also a director of Glastonbury. But you'll have seen in the statement we made on Tuesday that we said this is not just an issue about this particular incident. It's about all festivals taking proper accountability of the artists that they're putting on and making sure that their statements don't cause divisions around communication. Music should be for everyone. We want to see our music and art space being for everyone, and that's really very important. I think I've covered everybody. If not, wave, gesticulate. Oh, Michael, you asked about Margate. Yes. Our colleagues and members UKLFI did a fantastic job on that, I might say. They intervened very, very well. You'll have seen that the local authority removed the listing from their website, and it did end. But you're absolutely right. It was an absolutely execrable art installation. We need to continue to be on watch for that. But I want to pay tribute to UK Lawyers for Israel for their intervention on that one.
Yeah, it's all right. Phil, the officers, honorary officers, will answer the questions overall. I don't want a new dialogue. Adrian.
Thank you. Just picking up the comments of Toby Millis regarding the IRGC. So this has been a long-standing demand by ourselves and communal colleagues for the prescription of the IRGC. Indeed, it was part of this government's platform prior to being elected. Both this government and the previous government have been very reluctant to prescribe the IRGC, and various different reasons have been given for that, but the principal one being that the IRGC is not sui generis with terrorist organisations. It's the arm of the Iranian state, however disgusting that state may be, and that as a consequence different considerations apply. Nevertheless, we've been pushing back against that, and we have meetings coming up with the FCDO and other members of government, and we'll be pushing that again. Other sanctions have been applied to members of the IRGC and the Iranian regime, as people will be aware, but it is a work in progress, and we'll continue to push the case. Regarding Harry's points regarding the death penalty, we've got the open session coming up on Israel, so I was anticipating the discussion would be part of that. There is an awful lot to talk about. Just one thing to note is that this new legislation, the death penalty for terrorist law, is coming up before the Israeli Supreme Court, which has given the government, I think, to the 24th of May to respond to various points that have been made in the petitions for judicial review of that legislation. And so we'll have to see what happens there. Israel as a state abolished the death penalty for ordinary crime in 1954, but it has stayed on the statute books for various things. There's been very, very limited application of the death penalty. There are two examples of when it's actually been it's been carried out. While one was a clear miscarriage of justice in the case of Mayor Tobolansky, who posthumously was rehabilitated and was buried with full military honours on Mount Herzl. The second one was Adolf Eichmann in obviously special circumstances regarding a Nazi war criminal. And then the third attempt to impose the death penalty was on John Jumanjuk, who was a conviction and sentence was overturned by the Supreme Court because of doubt over identity. So it just kind of that, in a way, illustrates the fraught nature of the death penalty, and why really there's always been great concern about limiting it. And the references that Harry made to the Talmud undoubtedly have had a normative effect on Israeli society, and one of the reasons why Israel's always been very reluctant to have an active approach to use of the death penalty. So we'll have to see what the Supreme Court does with this legislation. There are many reasons to find the legislation objectionable, as have received a lot of publicity. But the final thing I just want to say on this is, as with everything with Israel, you always feel like you're facing two ways at the same time. I mean, there are 54 countries in the world which have the death penalty, and a number of those very actively carry it out. China carries out executions every year in the thousands. Iran, as we know, regularly carries out executions. I was very sad to hear on Friday there was an 18-year-old musician by the name of Amir Hussein Hatami who was hanged. And the allegation was that he attempted an arson attack in Tehran, which his family rejected, and he and a number of his friends have been killed. Just to put things in perspective, I sincerely hope that the Israeli Supreme Court will deal with this legislation. But it's also the case that it's being used as a stick to beat Israel in the way, as we know, Israel gets exceptional exposure and condemnation, which doesn't occur in relation to any other country on this planet. So I just wanted to finish with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm going to go to the other honorary officers now who want to comment. Jeremy.
Yes. Two things. One, as far as the material, the bias educational material, if you could send me copies, if you can get them, either photographed copies or real ones, certainly between myself and Anna Silva, we'll certainly look at this and see what we can do about it. Please do that. And the second thing is about Sheffield. I'm delighted that the Sheffield Reform Synagogue had an excellent civic programme yesterday, civic service. It is to remind Jane that there was Hospital Sunday in the Orthodox Synagogue, which I attended and she attended in January. And as far as I'm aware, and I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, I don't think the board would have given any money to that either. But it's great that Sheffield really plays such an important role in attracting civic and wider dignitaries.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things to add to what's been said about some of the issues that our division deals with. The first thing is I want to reassure Susan and others that the manifesto that we're about to issue does make very, very clear that importing foreign conflicts into local government elections isn't something that really improves your local housing, your local schools, your local transport, or whether or not your dustbins are delivered on time, and that is what local elections are supposed to be about. So I'm glad to reassure Susan that it wasn't too late for us to make that the cornerstone of the manifesto that we're about to issue. The other thing I just want to say about education, the meeting that Bill alluded to, which is about the Commission on Anti-Semitism being headed up by Sir David Bell, that I went to together with Toby Green, they have announced that the Board of Deputies will be on the advisory board to that commission. So we will have a significant sustained input in that activity. Thank you.
Thank you. One other person come online while we've been answering this. Derek Say. Derek Saker, there. We can't hear.
He's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute. Can't hear.
Can we unmute Derek?
Oh dear.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. First of all, just appreciation for all the efforts of the board, particularly Phil. I do have one question. Regarding all the interfaith work, and I may be mistaken, but can the board name one Muslim leader who is mainstream and who has a huge following within the UK that the board has developed a relationship with? And I would argue that there probably is not one. And therefore, my question is, can the board not become much more robust in speaking out against radical Islamist anti-Semitism?
Right, thank you. Right, Phil?
Happy to take that. Derek, first of all, welcome. I think this is your first meeting as a deputy. I know we've had a correspondence over a period of time. Welcome to the Board of Deputies. Welcome aboard. In terms of mainstream leaders, yeah, absolutely. You'll be aware that we went on a delegation to the National Prayer Breakfast in February with the chair of the Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board, which is an organisation that has under its umbrella 800 mosques. So it's these are significant figures, the ones that we're engaging with. You might know that I was involved alongside Rabbi Wittenberg and leading rabbis from across our community with Drumlanrig Accords, with leading imams and other religious leaders from the different denominational spectrum in Islam. That's not to say that it's simple, and I think you're right to this. You know, too often moderate voices are silent and they need to be speaking out, too often running scared of extremists. So we're absolutely working to tackle extremists. You might have seen the After Heaton Park document, a range of different recommendations around Islamist extremism, which the government has said it will take on in its Protecting What Matters document, explicitly referencing our document and indeed the Commission on Anti-Semitism, which we ran. So we have to do two things at once. We have to strengthen moderate voices, and we have to tackle extremists with vigour. We need to do both those things. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, and the other honorary officers, and thank you, deputies, for your questions. We now move on to a very exciting item, our new initiative, Jewish Culture Month, which is now getting close to the time of launch. And I'd like to invite Liat Rosenthal, Director of the Culture, Education and Communities, to talk about that. Liat.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here with you all. Now, you might have noticed on your chairs, there's a little offering for you all. It is our tote bags, Jewish Culture Month in the lilac and in the very vibrant green. We hope you will support the project by wearing these around town, you know, to get your shopping, to pick up your challah on a Friday. Noah will model them now. Beautiful. Very good. So, and if you're super lucky, you get one with the less oi, more joy on the reverse, which is, you know, extra bonus. Wonderful. So that's what I've been doing for the last few months. No, I'm just joking. There's a bit more to it. So let me tell you a little bit about Culture Month, which is coming up very, very soon. It's going to start on the 16th of May, and it will be an incredible event taking place throughout all of Savannah. So Jewish Culture Month is very much a celebration of British Jewish culture, creativity, and a real moment to sort of mark, you know, contribution of British Jews in all different forms. When I talk about Culture Month, a lot of people think very much about arts and culture, but the programme is really expansive and takes us into all kinds of different areas of culture, whether that be, you know, Jewish contribution to psychotherapy, to sciences, innovation, heritage, history, etc. So thank you so much, Phil, for bringing this forth and giving me the opportunity to make it all happen, because it's been incredibly special. What is it exactly? What is this programme? So I have to say that when I took on the gig, we thought we'd have about 30 events taking place across the UK, and that was going to be fantastic. We have over 100. Thank you so much. But the real thank you is for all of the people in, you know, who've been involved in different communities who have come forward and wanted to put on events and wanted to be part of this project. There are sort of three main strands that are the events that you'll find on the website. One is the community event. So we put a call out. Anyone who wanted to put on an event celebrating British Jewish culture could have it take place. And so we've got quite a lot of events across the UK. The second strand is around cultural organisations, which I'd love to tell you a little bit more about, because that's been a really fantastic achievement as well. And then the last strand is the Jewish Living Experience exhibition, which is our educational participative project, which is going on across the UK as well during Culture Month. So everything from pickling dinner parties through to walking tours to workshops. There's a whole range of activity that you can take part in as part of Jewish Culture Month. So if you haven't been on the website yet, please do go on www.jewishculturemonth.org.uk and find out what's local to you and tell everyone about it and come and support the events. The cultural organisations, a lot of people have asked me, was it hard to get all these cultural organisations to take part in Jewish Culture Month? And maybe before I say the answer, I'll give you, the successes. So for this year, we have Tate taking part, Tate Modern and Tate Britain. We've got the V&A with an incredible 6 events. The British Museum will be having a lunchtime lecture about ancient Israel. The South Bank, National Portrait Gallery, they've become very good friends of ours. Museum of the Home, Bodleian Library in Oxford. The Science Museum, North East Museums, Museum of Liverpool, Freud Museum London, and the British Library are just some. There's more. So people have asked, has culture become a hostile place for the British Jewish community? Is this something we should be concerned about? And I think the answer is that the organisations have been so generous and so willing to participate. I think we should all be, take a lot of pride in that, because so many of them have got the most incredible works in their collections, paintings on their wall by incredible Jewish artists who break manuscripts, wonderful buildings designed by Jewish architects. So there's so much for them to be proud of and to share. So that's wonderful. Okay, that's not all. We've got even more. So Jewish Culture Month can also be marked in schools. If you go on the website, there's a whole load of resources that schools can enjoy and engage with. In the workplace, so Noah over there has been putting together some ideas for resources for how Jewish Culture Month could be marked at work, and also our Friday night project. So this is something that all of you might want to participate in. If you would like to have a Friday night during Jewish Culture Month and invite people outside of our community, photograph it before, candles, share it on socials, that would be wonderful. So those are the sort of key pillars of what we're doing. It's all been really good, and I'd love to answer any questions.
Right, would you like to come here, please? Anyone like to ask a question?
Hello.
Just a quickie question.
Yes, please go to the,
do you want the mic?
Go to the mic.
Just a quickie question. On the website, it says the deadline for applications is the 19th of January, which is a few months ago. What happens if somebody has a potential event they would like to include?
I'm really, really glad you asked that question, because I think now that it's a little bit more visible as a project, everyone's like, actually, I could do something. But the truth is that we're already quite overstretched because, like I said, over 100 events when we only thought we were going to have 30 or so. So what I recommend is that you get in touch and we start thinking about next year. So Sivan is a little bit later next year. It's June to July. So we can think about more programming outdoors, potentially at festivals. There's a whole different way we might want to think about more outdoorsy program. But yeah, let's start the conversation now, because I think that's one thing that has been a bit of a shame, that we've had to really build the plane while flying this year and just get it up on its feet and sort of test, launch and learn. So I think that we need to just now start this conversation for 27.
Any further questions? Yes, would you come here if you want to ask a question? Yeah. John. And could you give your name?
John Melker, United Synagogue.
Thank you.
First of all, congratulations. Fantastic effort, fantastic result. It's not easy, and doing the first one is the real hard work. I know it's even harder than the next one, but having the base for the future is enormous. 2 quick questions. How are we promoting this to the outside community, to the non-Jews? Because one thing is having 100 events, another thing is how we're going to get people to these events. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And secondly, for the next year, I come from Copenhagen. We've had a Jewish Culture Week. You're much better, you do the month for many, many years. But one of the things we do is open up all the Jewish institutions. Now, security is one thing, but we've opened up all the synagogues and have synagogue tours, and having had iftar meals and mock seders over the last month, with lots of people from outside coming to the shul, and they love it. Can we build that into it? Because that's also part of our culture, of course, for the future.
Great. I love a comms question. So comms-wise, we've got lots. Oh, hello. It's not used to this much activity. Are we good? So we've got a really brilliant comms team, including those within the Board of Deputies, but also some externals coming on board to give us just that extra support. So we've got additional PR support. Our PR strategy includes the regional coverage, because we've got events going on across the whole UK, as well as nationals, and then more like specialist areas, because within the programme there are these sort of different strands within strands within strands, but we've got amazing food, we've got art, we've got all these like walking tours, so there are kind of heritage as well being a key one. So there are sort of different publication areas that we can go into that way. Social media is now live, so you can follow us all on Instagram if you are so inclined. And we're going to create gorgeous content about all of the, not all of them actually, that's a bit too ambitious, but a lot of the artists and participants. And I think that's also really important, because Instagram itself is a massive platform to tell the story about Jewish Culture Month. So for example, right now, our social media content creator is in East London, in Leighton, with a group of picklers. And she's in a pickling studio, capturing the content about their family's Jewish history, why they have become this sort of really chic pickling organisation, and essentially what they're doing for Jewish Culture Month as well. So that's going to be a really important strand of our comms and marketing. And I think the most important part in terms of answering that question about the diversification of audience and audience reach is around the partnership work. So obviously this whole thing would not work without the Jewish community being fully behind, fully engaged, fully involved and driving it forwards. But it won't work if it's only for us, it has to be for everyone. And so the work that our partner organisations are doing in terms of even having 6 events in the V&A's programme on their website, in their listings, is massive. It's huge, huge visibility. And Tate have also committed to like Instagram reels being shown for the launch of Jewish Culture Month, as of National Portrait Gallery and others. So I do think this is going to have quite a big impact and awareness, which is great.
Thank you. And one more question, Jonathan.
Jonathan Brodie, Deputy for Kingsbury Synagogue. I don't know if this is something that's been addressed already, but when we received the email saying that the website had been launched with details of events, it wasn't searchable, so I couldn't go in and see what will there be in the London area or by date or anything. Is that going to be something that's addressed if it hasn't yet been?
Have you checked it recently? No. Okay, I think it has been addressed. I would triple check it. Yeah, so this whole building the plane while flying it has been a little bit like, you know, put your seatbelts on and let's get going. So there was a phase 1 launch of the website and a phase 2, and in the phase 2 there were lots of extra bits that came into it, including like searchable functions for like region, you know, activity type, also all the additional activities like in schools, in the workplace, the Friday night stuff, that's been added to the website in phase 2. So hopefully if you check it again, it should be a little bit more updated.
Michael, thank you very much for speaking to us and all your work. Thank you. Right, we're now going to have a photograph.
Deputies, just calling you back to order. Before we proceed with the next item, I was intimated that we had a birthday today. Renee Wasserman. Happy birthday. Doughty Deputy, and very happy, many happy returns to you. So the next item on our agenda is an open forum on the Disability Commission. You remember when I stood for this position, I pledged we would have a commission on disability inclusion. Another pledge delivered, friends, because this is what we are. Of our 5 priorities, you remember that making our community more united, more inclusive, and more outward looking is one of our key 5 priorities. And I'm really delighted that the past president, my friend, my colleague, my mentor, Vivian Wyman, has agreed to chair this commission. And we thought it would be a really good place to start to have, I think this is the first evidence session of the Commission with deputies themselves. Some of you have lived experiences of disability. Other people here have members of their family who I know that people have given testimony about in the past. So without any further ado, over to the Chair of the Commission, Vivian Wyman.
Thank you very much for that, Phil. It's really been a great privilege to be associated with this for 2 reasons. First of all, the board. I'm very proud to have been associated with the board, to have been an honorary officer for 3 terms and for 9 years, and being a past president.
I think the community is very fortunate to have the board. Other faith communities in this country want to copy us. I think it's an excellent institution and has done excellent work. I think the board is actually very fortunate in its current leadership. So I'm very pleased. I think they're great guys. I think you're doing an excellent job. And I think this initiative, which is one of many, is one of the things that we look for from the board, bringing out the positive as well as the negative sides of the community. So that's my first real privilege to be doing this. The second is disabilities themselves. We would say that the moral standard of a community is how it handles the least fortunate of its members. And that is why people with disabilities, particularly children with disabilities, are so important. Now, I've been described as a disabilities activist. That's very flattering. I don't think it's really right. I came to the field initially more because of a love of cycling and adventure. And in 1993, I went on a charity challenge organized by what was then known as Ravenswood. And I'm very proud of the fact that it's the Jewish community which actually pioneered this concept of the charity challenge, which pioneered so many things in the charity world. And from there, it has spread all the way across the other communities in the UK. 33 years later, we're still at it. And it's quite different. I cycled on a charity challenge last year, and there were dozens of charities represented there. Almost all of them were not Jewish charities, but they started with an idea which the community itself had given them. And it's one of the gifts which our community can claim to have given to the United Kingdom communities generally. Children with learning disabilities can teach us an awful lot. I started this before I was married, before I had a family, and before I had a son with very acute learning disabilities. And you learn a lot from that. I have two other children, both of whom are Cambridge graduates, firsts and honours and all that sort of stuff in high-flying jobs, and we're very proud of them. But they can be confident that our love for them and our pride in them is totally unconditional, because our other son, Yair, has never passed an exam, has never taken an exam, and never will. And yet we love him, and that love comes from the natural love that a parent has for a child and that a community will have for its members. It's not in any way conditional on any performance on their part. So the sense in which Yair himself has given us an awful lot, particularly has given my daughters an awful lot. We've seen this now with right across the communities. When we were looking at the terms of reference of this commission, one of the points that I was very keen to see is that we should be referring not only to the people who have disabilities themselves and how we can care for them and include them in the community, but also to their carers and to their relations. And I'm not one myself, but I am obviously very close to someone who's caring for a child with disabilities. And these are people of whom one can say that they make up for nature's parsimony by their own boundless love. And being active in this area, you see these wonderful people who actually bring light to the children who they look after, but to all of us who observe them. And although I'm proud of the Jewish role in this, it's one which is cross-communal. And one of the things that the Commission will hopefully be looking at is to compare our standards in our community with those of the other ones. And I'm very pleased that when I was first involved in a project being run by a disability charity in the Jewish community, that one of the points they made to me at the very beginning was that this project would be for the benefit of everyone, not just of Jews, but of also non-Jews in the area of Ravenswood Village, and that we would be seeing benefits passed outside the community as well as inside. And we see this from the examples with the carers give us, Jewish carers, non-Jewish carers, how much they've got to show us and how much our work here with disabilities is also part of our interfaith work, which is a very important part of our position as a community in this country and a position of the board. We have to see particularly the stress which is felt by the carers of these children, because marital breakdown and stress are particularly common among those who care for children with disabilities, and I will hope that we will actually be seeing how we can help them in their situation. I am not an academic with any experience with the actual psychology there. It's a sobering fact that each of us, that what we have on our heads is the most complex object in the known universe. So, in fact, our knowledge of children with disabilities, of adults with disabilities, has got a long, long way to go. And we're looking, obviously, to see the progress that is made. And I, as a parent with children, are looking to see not only other people's experience of disabilities, but other parents' experience of caring for children with disabilities. We're very much going to be in listening mode. So I'm looking forward at the end of this session as people will talk about their experiences and the questions that they have to put to us, and we'll be very much looking forward to listening to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vivian, for what you're doing and for those remarks. Now, would anyone like to ask any questions to Vivian? Or any comments from it? Yes, is that Denise? Can you come up here, please? Can you come up to the mic?
What does it? Huh?
Thank you.
Questions. Sorry? Oh, yeah. Do you want to read them?
Hello, everyone. I'm Noah. I'm the Workplace Inclusion Officer at the board, and I'm the co-secretariat for the Commission. Just to ground the discussion that we're going to have today, in your plenary paperwork pack, you were given 2 questions to inspire thought for this session. And just to remind you of those, they are, beyond the excellent work of our communal disability organisations, what does the Jewish community need to do differently to be more inclusive of disabled people and their families? That's the first question for you. And the second for you is, what examples of good practice are already out there in communities that you'd like to highlight? So, beyond the work of the excellent disability charities, what more does the community need to do to be inclusive of disabled people and their families? And what examples of good practice do you have to share that you'd like to highlight? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Denise.
Denise Lester, South Hampstead Synagogue. I think the Jewish community has the real opportunity to score and lead the wider community by this initiative. But I'd like to put to Vivian some comments, and also in terms of collective responsibility for us all. Disability can be non-visible as well as visible. I have a non-visible disability, and I also have an acute awareness in my professional life, having acted with people with disabilities of various kinds. I think that initially we should start from home, which is looking at some training and videos, material of conscious and unconscious bias for ourselves as an organisation, as a model organisation. Certainly, when I sat on the Law Society Council, we had training on that, and on a more outward-facing basis, I think that we could lead in terms of good practice and encouraging those, including guidance to individuals, because there's disability in the workplace, disability in wider society, how we look at kindness and compassion and inclusion to people within the Jewish community and beyond, on the buses, public transport, etc., accessibility in our communal spaces, all of that. So we could really score, and I'd like Vivian to perhaps consider and make some comment on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else want to raise anything?
You've got Nat on.
Nat online. Nat online.
I hope you're all well in person. Nat Kenyon Limud. I just wanted to ask if and how the Commission will be engaging with regional communities. I know personally from growing up in Leeds that the service providers in those regional communities often do all of the jobs at once, right? There's not individual organizations that sort of tackle or help people with, support people with specific parts of issues, but actually they end up being providers that deal with, whole families with all sorts of issues and, support for across the scheme of things that people need support with. So I want to know, how will the Commission sort of draw on that and draw on that as shared best practice that they can bring to other parts of the country.
Right, thank you. Anybody else? Oh, John Veer Palmer online.
Thank you, Jean-Vier Palmer, Bromley Reform Synagogue. I wanted to raise the issue of intersectionality, which is the intersectionality between disability and Jewish identity, because members, in my community, my constituents have talked about an increasing level of anti-Semitism within the disability activist sphere. A lot of the arenas for disability activism are becoming increasingly extremist and are raising issues around Israel and Gaza and all of these things, which aren't which are alienating Jewish disabled people from those spaces. And I wanted to know what more we can do to support disabled people who are also Jewish in the wider community.
Right, thank you, John. Anybody? Judith? Judith.
Hello, I'm Judith Prinsley from Muswell Hill Synagogue. I know Owen, excuse me, was hoping to join us. I'm not sure that he was able to come because he's got an AGM at Jackson's Row. But in terms of sharing good practice, I want to thank Owen Power because we have learned. Can we give him a clap? Because he's been amazing. He's online. Owen, I've learned a lot from you. I think we all have. And you've made our plenary and other things much more accessible. And one of those things I've also been able to share with other meetings, nothing to do with the Jewish community, and that is making sure your picture is on, your camera is on when you're speaking. And that sounds very basic, but that's really been important. And again, the board has listened to Owen and others. It's a two-way relationship. The other thing that Owen's been very involved with is hearing in shuls. And I also know, and it's something we could do as representatives, is going to our shul and saying, what are the hearing situations? So for example, we had JDA out to our shul to help us. So we have got partners there. And I think if we all went back to our shuls and said, look, a basic thing, can everybody hear? And it's not always easy because the acoustics aren't always very good. So thank you.
Thank you. Right, yes, next one.
Paul Harris, Masorti Judaism. There's a few points I want to make about this fantastic initiative. One of the practical things that I would like to see come out of it is material being sent to all the synagogues about different services that can be put on that cater for people who can't sit in a service for an hour or 2 hours but want to be part of the community. And that's something that I think is very practical that can come out of this and something that the board can lead on. Secondly, I'm also the carer of someone who I guess it falls under the disability, and she's a far better advocate of her needs than I am. But if she was here today, I think one of the things that she would mention, particularly for young women, is masking. There's a real issue with young girls being diagnosed much later with problems than young boys, particularly in the Jewish community, because of masking. And I would ask to look into that, because I think masking is a real issue and it's a real challenge for many kids who struggle. My daughter did for a number of years, masking, hiding her disabilities, when she would have had a much better education and young period, and if that had been addressed early on. And finally, I'd just like to pay tribute to Noam, the Masorti youth movement, whose main keyword is inclusivity. There is no child that they won't allow to go on their summer program, and they will make allowances, make arrangements for, to make sure that they're included.
Thank you. Right, Laura.
Annabelle Deutsch, Synagogue Reform. I was just going to say a few words about what it's like to be a mental health professional as well as an expert. experience. I'm a retired psychiatrist, and I've also had lifelong severe and enduring health problems. And although it has been difficult, I feel very supported by my peers and also my peers at the board who accept me for who I am, despite all the stigma that goes with it. At A-List, we have a very well-developed disability service. We run a club for people with learning disabilities where they can socialise. And we also have just developed a disability forum, and with a view to inclusivity of people with disability into synagogue life and services, and bar and bat mitzvah programs, etc. So I think I would like to thank Edith for being so proactive.
Yes.
Harry Lamper, under 35 for Mazorti. I just want to suggest it might be worth chatting to the team in the Limud office, because Limud puts huge amount of time and effort into making a ridiculously large event as accessible as possible, both to those with physical disabilities or those who are neurodiverse, and they have they've got a lot of contacts or even suggestions for things that can be done in all sorts of different scenarios.
Thank you. Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to endorse what Judith said about Owen Power and thank him for all the work that he has done. Certainly, I could have done what I did when I was chair of Liberal Judaism without his leadership, which was fantastic. In terms of initiatives that could possibly be copied, this year the LJS, the Jewish Synagogue here in London, together with Deaf Shul, we had about 15 people to our Seder, communal Seder, and it was signed throughout, and it was a collaboration with Deaf Shul, and it was actually Owen pioneered the link with Deaf Shul. So those sorts of things can be copied, and we seem to be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Flora Frank online.
I'm trying to. Hi, British Emunah, Flora Frank. I'm in a car in Jerusalem, stuck in traffic. I'm not driving. I want to thank Vivian Wyman very, very much for his wonderful presentation, and Kol HaKavod, Vivian. And I want to just follow up something that Denise Lester said about compassion and whatever else. I, as a teacher at JFS many years ago, no, it wasn't at JFS, it was a Cheder. I'm getting muddled up, but I was teaching GCSE at the time. The point I'm making is the public, we have to involve, we should involve the public more. I'm speaking quickly because my daughter needs to move on. We should involve the public more. And I think it should be put on the curriculum. And I'll tell you why. As a GCSE teacher, I had a class of very, very bright girls, very spoiled. It was a Cheder, it was doing the GCSE, and they were not interested at all until I took them to Ravenswood. And I asked them to do an essay on how they would cope with any member of the family or friend or relation who had disability. It completely changed their minds. These about six girls, they all got A's for their GCs. They were so motivated by the visit to Ravenswood. And the point I'm making is I think it should be on the curriculum. I don't know if that was part of it, because it was very fuzzy sometimes. I couldn't hear very clearly, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. That is my suggestion, and I think it's crucial that we should be outward looking to everybody, not just pay money and give money and raise money for Norwood, which I do, and Norwood, Ravenswood, and Emunah as well. But with the marathons, which I hope to do on Friday, please God, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next week, yes, yeah. Yes.
In Grays in New North London Synagogue. It was appropriate that we have Rabbi Wittenberg here today, because when my autistic granddaughter wanted to have a mitzvah about 3 years ago, she couldn't learn to read Hebrew, but what she could do was have a debate with him at the Mincha service for half an hour about whether God existed. He was brilliant at that, and by Wittenberg, perhaps not all rabbis would have done, was more than willing to debate that with her. And that was what he did for her bat mitzvah instead of a Devar Torah or anything else. It's about a phrase which I like to use professionally, reasonable adjustments. And that's what we should be doing. And if you want my contribution to this debate, Vivian, it's about making adjustments for those children who don't necessarily have a visible, or isn't necessarily visible, who have a disability which is not visible, but make adjustments so that they can, as Rabbi Wittenberg did, partake in Jewish life as much as everybody else can.
Thank you. Kochav online.
Hi, hello. On behalf of server April Synagogue. I'm a person. I just want to ask or raise concerns about the lived reality of people's country who are not capable of work, such as myself, who on government benefits. I wanted to awareness that there was a attack on permanent primary disability benefit.
We can't hear you very well. Let's carry on. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me better now? Is that better?
A bit better, yes. Yeah.
Carry on.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just that the board deputies can kind of urge people and advocate on behalf of the government. And one of the things I want to be aware about is vulnerability of disabled people relying on government benefits and the difficulties certainly facing as government gain for rental disability benefits. I just raised about that, ask if the commission is going to address that or deal with that. Thanks.
Yes, Kochav, yes. Julian Berman online.
Hi, thank you. Julian Berman for Radlett Reform Synagogue. I'd like to thank Vivian for the excellent work that the Commission is doing. In my capacity as chair of Hertfordshire Jewish Forum, I work very closely with an organization called One Vision Project, which is a Hertfordshire-based charity which does extensive work with communities across Hertfordshire, focusing initially on Southeast Asian carers, African Caribbean families supporting mental health issues, and disabled carers. The Jewish community in Hertfordshire has a very strong association with One Vision. Two of our leading members, Dame Helen Hyde and Lord Lieutenant Robert Voss, are the patron and trustees of the organization, and we are currently doing extensive work with them in Hertfordshire from the Jewish community as well. So I would like to encourage the Commission to reach out to One Vision and work with them. One of the key initiatives that we have is the Care for Carers program, which was funded and supported by Hertfordshire County Council. And I attended a fantastic event recently supporting young carers in the Southeast Asian community, where the involvement of family members, intergenerational bonds and maintaining family is so important. So I really would like to see the Commission working closely with us in Hertfordshire to further the work of One Vision. One Vision is also expanding across the country as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Owen Power online.
Good evening. It's Owen Power from York Liberal Jewish Community. Thank you very, very much, Judith and Karen, for your very kind words, but a special big thank you to you, Phil, for this marvellous initiative. I think it's really great that it's happening. I must say we've already achieved a great deal, and it's very, very heartwarming. The professional staff, everyone involved, really are genuinely determined to make it happen. My own personal dream is, in the longer term, I would dearly love to see more disabled people themselves standing for election to the Board of Deputies to be a visible voice on the board and not just simply organisations speaking on their behalf. So that's my hope for the new triennium. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, speakers on the floor.
Hi, Naomi Terberg, West London Synagogue. There are several things I just want to briefly say, both professionally and personally. I train teachers, primary school teachers, to go into special schools, and I myself have been very humbled at working with special schools and working with the families in the special schools. And one of the things that I think is very difficult is how families find it difficult to get into the communities themselves. And at West London Synagogue, we provide opportunities for children and families to have their bar mitzvahs at various times. We've had the Jewish Deaf Association in our synagogues for the High Holy Days for many years, and it's very humbling to watch the deaf-blind workers work with the adults as well. And one of the other things I wanted to say personally was that we have a few within my family, children with Downs, and I was honoured this year to host those children at our Seder. And it was just so moving at how much they engaged, and all the family supported those children when they had a little bit of a wobbler. And I just think those families need to be included in everything, regardless of whether they have a little hissy fit or whatever. Don't all children. So I think we need to welcome them more into normal everyday activities and make them feel welcome. And one of the children said, "Can I have a bat mitzvah now?" And it was just wonderful, That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Right, Sheila.
Thank you, Louise. Sorry to speak twice, but this is important. Sheila Gewald, Cardiff United Synagogue. You mentioned schools, special needs children. I go into lots of schools. I know we have a Jewish Living Experience exhibition. I think we need to look, Jeremy, at possibly Anna running some training of how we can engage with these children. I've been in as a Jewish visitor to a school where the children were non-verbal, and there are things we can do to help them celebrate and appreciate our culture and our way of life without speaking and without having banners, music, touch, food. I just wanted to bring that up as well, that perhaps we can look at something along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, last speaker.
Alina Weisman, West London Synagogue. When I grew up in Germany, my aunt had special needs. And one thing we did as a family was we were part of a community that had regional lunches. So in our region, just meeting up and spending time together to see that people were not alone, and we connected over that. And I think that is a really important part. We spoke about regional lunches earlier, and using those regional lunches to bring people together to share this is something that many people suffer from, or carers can spend time together. Those unwell spend time together. That helps a lot.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Thank you very much, all of you who have so far contributed to this fascinating discussion of something that's so important. For me, it means a great deal because I know that I've been very, very fortunate. Congenital nystagmus, which is what I was born with, which left me almost entirely blind at birth, has, it improves as you go on in childhood and early adolescence if nystagmus is congenital. And so I now have about a quarter of normal vision in my left eye, which has enabled me to live a normal life, as if anything I do is normal, but that's another issue. And I've just basically not required. I've been able to navigate my way through the Jewish community, and indeed any other community for that matter, with a modicum of help, but not requiring very much. But thinking of something that Sheila just brought up. Until I retired from paid work, that is, I ran my own consultancy going into schools talking about Judaism. And one of the most incredible experiences I had was at a school called the Russet School near Delamere, a non-Jewish school, of course, dealing with people with learning difficulties of all descriptions. And I suppose the most difficult problem I had was with a particular class. I say a problem in the sense that a problem with not breaking down into emotion, with kids who were struggling. They really had, they were non-verbal, and they were having terrible difficulty, even sort of, they was not tied in, but they were strapped into their seats. And I started singing a Purim song. I was there to talk about Purim, and I started to sing a Purim song. And suddenly, there was calm. I mean, yes, even with my voice, there was calm. And it was just one of the most incredible experiences. And this particular school is one that we can certainly learn from. And I'm sure, things have improved vastly since when I was at school. And recently, there was a few of us in Redbridge at the end of last year, and in one particular school, I think it was JCOS, they have a special sensory room, and they're obviously much more aware. And what we've really got to do now is to, as I said, is to work with the organisations that are already doing this work. As Vivian said, to work with the families. Because families are really very, very impacted by, obviously, the need to look after people with disabilities. I think that's very, very important. So as many of you as possible, if you come forward, and also, not without your own experiences, but also if you know people in the community. I've already been spreading the word around. One of my rabbis at Steen Court has a Down syndrome son, who we all love dearly, and he comes to shul Friday night and Shabbos morning, and we all love him dearly. Spread the word around amongst the community so that people should be happy to come forward, tell them, to give their lived experiences so that we can put forward some really positive suggestions. And remember this, we're not looking to catch people out. We're not looking to catch organisations out to say, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing... We want to look at where there is already good practice, see if we can make sure that it's spread around further, and encourage even better practice. Everything we do in this commission should be positive. It should be with the aim of improving inclusivity. And mazel tov to all the organisations that are already working on this. I was really impressed by what I heard about Eilith and other shuls. That's great, and we need to make this even more widely known. Thank you very much.
Well, Vivian, you've heard from so many questions and comments how much your work is being valued. And I'd like to invite you to respond to whatever of these points you feel you're able to at this point. Can you take the mic?
Well, I'll do my best, but there's an awful lot here and an awful lot to answer. And I'm not a sage on the stage, so I don't have some great information that I can impart to everyone. I'll begin by thanking Jeremy for his contribution, and I'm looking forward to working with you on the commission. To remind everyone, there is a website, disability at bod.org.uk, so people can actually link onto that. If you need more information, I'm sure we'll be happy to give it to you. Now, we've had quite a lot of questions with a lot of content in them, and I would do my best to comment on them. Right, starting with, I think it was Denise. Here we are. Yes, this is an opportunity for the Jewish community to do something which we've done in social care and to a certain extent in this particular area before, pioneering new ideas that can help the people who need them. I don't think we should be complacent. We need to look at inclusivity in public places, particularly in synagogues. There's a lot of work here. I'm very interested to hear suggestions that people may have. And next, Nat mentioned regional communities. That is always such an important issue because often you've got tiny Jewish communities who are looking to provide a full range of services for all their members. And it's one of the strengths of the board that it has reached out to those. And obviously this is a particularly difficult area, and look forward to hearing from more about it from you. We'll be listening very much in listening mode, listening to you. Limud is a cause which is very close to my heart. I've been at Limuds in 3 continents, and I think they do terrific work, and the fact that they'll be involved in this will be very helpful indeed. Joan Vere Palmer, I'm really rather shocked at this, that there should be anti-Israel and anti-Semitism in this area of all. Israel actually, Israel's got many great strengths, and there are many things about Israel I'm very critical of, but this is an area I'm extremely proud of, and it's from my own experience I've seen how in many areas of dealing with disability, they are right up, they're pioneers, and have shown terrific inventiveness and commitment. I think it'd be terrible if this whole area gets sullied with political issues which are serious and which we all care about, but nevertheless are separate from the problems which disability and disabled children and disabled adults face. It doesn't have a nationality disability. It's universal. And my own impression has been that I've seen nothing but goodwill from both Jews and non-Jews on this subject. This is obviously something that, if it comes up, we obviously will have to deal with it. Judith, sharing good practice and your reference to JDA, point taken. That is really something that we'd be looking to do. Paul Harris, I can't really answer at the points that you're making. The masking issue is something that I'd like to talk to you about on a one-to-one basis. I'm very happy to talk to anybody on a one-to-one basis with insights there. These are obviously quite serious problems which we would want to see taken on board. I've seen the reference to Masorti. Again, I'm very pleased to see that they have taken initiatives. I'm hardly surprised, just as I'm not surprised to hear that this has been happening in the progressive movement generally. Flora I know from Norwood. I should just tell deputies that Flora actually did get a special award from Norwood for her activities on Norwood's behalf. So I think she's in a position to talk here. And she's had obviously experience in her own family of disability. Colin Grayson, non-visible disability. That is very, very important because so much of people do go by appearances, and so much of what is going on is hidden from us. And so this is a point that we obviously do have to take on board. Julian Berman, you mentioned One Vision. That is something that I would like personally to research on much more. Kochav, I didn't catch everything that you said. I think the reception wasn't the greatest, but I'd like again to engage on that on a one-to-one basis. Owen Power, you've obviously had quite a response from the deputies already here. I'm not sure that I have very much to add to that. Nomi, the plea for inclusivity, couldn't agree with you more. Sheila, it's a chance to show off our culture, and that's one which we should take advantage of. I'm very proud of, as I say, of the Jewish community's record, both for disabilities and in social care. I just don't think we should be complacent. I think I've answered all the questions that I've made a note of. Anybody who's got a question that they want to put to me personally or to anybody else on the top table, we'll be very happy to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all you're doing. Thank you, Vivian, for all you're doing and for the answering so many questions. We look forward to further reports. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, our next item, considerations of applications to join the board. Dilys.
My name is Dilys Taus. I represent Belsize Square Synagogue, and I'm chair of the Constitution Committee, and it's the Constitution Committee that looks at all applications that are made to join the Board of Deputies. We then make a recommendation to the executive, and the executive then make the decision as to whether they want to put forward the application to be voted upon by the plenary.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the application from Plymouth Jewish Community?
It stands for Community Interest Company, and it's a particular way of incorporating a company that can be used rather than, it's just a different type of company, like a limited company or private company. Just a description of that.
Any further questions or comments on this application? Would you come up to the mic, please? Anybody who wishes to raise anything? Right. Clive Lawton. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Doreen Schmetterling, New West End Synagogue, Bayswater. My question is, as it's written in the application, it's a good idea for underserved communities. How do we define underserved? For example, is my community underserved in Bayswater, middle of London, as we have very few Jews living around? Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got Clive Lawton online. If anyone else wants to speak, would you come up to the mic, please? And I'll call you from here.
Good afternoon.
Clive Lawton.
Clive Lawton from Bristol Hebrew Congregation. As the guardians of the gateway to the southwest of England in Bristol, first of all, can I say, can we in future hyphenate underserved so that it doesn't look like undeserved? That confuses things. It's only that, the application itself makes pretty clear that there's a very small number of Jews in Plymouth, and I'm slightly concerned that each small organisation will have a representation until every individual is on the Board of Deputies. There is a Hebrew congregation, there's a synagogue there, lovely little place. Are they represented on the board? Is there any overlap? Is there any cooperation? Or is this a new body that somehow incorporates the Hebrew congregation?
Right, thank you. Yes, Denise.
Denise Leicester, Southampton Synagogue. Just as a matter of due diligence and for information purposes, what do we know about the actual company? Is it registered at Companies House? The officers? What are its defined aims and objectives? Has it had active activities? I say this not to be negative, because of course communities where there are little population, however they can amass, in principle, and want to join the board is a good thing. But to just say this without any ancillary information involved troubles me in principle, and I think we ought to know. So could you assist, please?
Thank you. Right, I'm going to take another question here and ask Dilys to respond to the points.
Thank you very much. There's also really a question for you, Dilys. I'm interested to know how the existing synagogue feels about the setting up of this CIC. I think there can be some tension between synagogues and wider Jewish community in an area, and I would just like to know how plans for resolving this exists. Thank you.
Dilys, can you like to respond to the points raised? Thank you.
In reverse, this particular organisation is actually uses as their base the Plymouth United Synagogue. So that it's a very much that they're using the United Synagogue hub, but they're bringing in everybody else into it. And the whole idea is that it not just be part of the synagogue, but it should be allowing people throughout the area, whether they are practicing within a synagogue, whether they just identify as being Jewish, in order for them to be able to be brought in the southwestern community, which is limited in size, as has been pointed out for other communities as well. As far as the company is concerned, this can be found online. I have it here if anyone wishes to see it, and the articles and that they use, and it is the company number 16619949, if anybody wishes to look it up, and it is incorporated under the Companies Act 2006, and as I say, I have it here if anybody wants to look at it, or you can look at it online. I take on point as an editor about the use of hyphens in words. Have I answered everybody's questions?
Right, please. Right, sorry, is there any more you want to say?
There is no definition of a small community as such within the Constitution.
Right, now, we've got... Is it before you do that? Is anybody else here who wants to ask a question? And there's one online. Okay, I'll take you and the one online, and then I'm going to proceed to vote after that. Right, thank you.
This is really following up on Clive's question. I'm in London, but my sister happens to be a member of Exeter Shul, and I know that it's a very healthy community. And I just wondered whether their deputy, I don't know whether he's online, but I wondered whether their deputy had been consulted about this. I do know that Plymouth and Exeter overlap a lot.
Right.
Julian online.
Right, Julian online.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to raise one point. There was a question about what a CIC is and is it regulated. As I've been going through similar process in setting up an organization, a CIC is a fully regulated company. It's a specialized company, which rather than setting up a charity, allows certain additional functions. But its key thing is that it's designed for social enterprises that benefit the community rather than the shareholders. So it's the perfect type of organization for small or type of structure for small organizations, and it is a fully regulated organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Dilys, is there anything further you'd like to answer?
Explanation. I'd just like to reiterate that even though it's been questioned about whether other synagogues are going to be affected by another organisation becoming part of a member of the Board of Deputies, I think that we need to take into account very much that this is also to do with people who are not members of a synagogue, but as I said before, see themselves as being Jewish and have a good relationship with the community. And I think that in this particular case, we were interested about the community events that they've held, such as the menorah lighting.
Thank you. Right, now we can reach a decision here. We can, on a show of hands, or we can proceed to a formal vote. I'd just like to test the feeling here. A lot of people have had questions and comments. Is there anybody here who wishes to vote against this?
Or online.
Or online. Anyone online who wishes to vote against this?
Nothing.
No, there's nothing.
No,
okay, can we...
One online.
Right.
One.
There's one person online. Okay. Can we agree this, Nemcon? Can you agree it? Yes?
Thank you.
Agreed, thank you. Right, thank you.
Welcome, Plymouth.
Thank you. Right, we now move to the new speakers programme. This is a section where newly elected deputies have the opportunity to address us for 3 minutes on whatever they wish to say to us as deputies. The first speaker, Arthur Weiss, in person here. Arthur. Arthur.
Hello. For those who don't yet know me, my name is Arthur Weiss, and I'm one of 2 board members representing Belmont United Synagogue. I'm semi-retired in that I get my pension. But in no way do I want to retire totally. I spent the last 30 years as a business researcher, mostly gathering intelligence on clients' competitors. Clients have included global companies, USA, Europe, and a number of Israeli companies. Looking at different sectors, pharmaceuticals, industrials, funeral planning companies. And my beef is generally to dig up any dirt, make sure nothing is kept buried. I've also specialized in training others how to gather such information. You may view me as a corporate spy, but I don't engage in any underhand espionage. Strangely, my bar mitzvah sedra was Shalach Lecha, which is about the 12 spies that Moshe sent to spy out Israel in the Torah. And there's an idea that your bar or bat mitzvah is an indicator of your future. It certainly was for me. Religiously, I'm modern Orthodox, although I hate the term. I prefer to just say I'm Jewish, as I'm not a fan of denominations. All have something to offer and to learn from. I've been married to Susie since 1988, and my son is now a maths professor at a liberal arts college in Hartford, Connecticut. He's married, and our first grandchild was born last year. My daughter lives in Israel, having made Aliyah at age 19. As Vivian was saying about inclusion, she's neurodiverse. She was only diagnosed in Israel and had problems here. She's highly creative, and she served on the Arrow while in the IDF. As a proud father, I'd love to see her married and also get a great job. I grew up in Reading. I studied in Sussex, and so smaller and slightly more diverse communities globally are an area of interest. My mother was born in Ireland, for example, in Cork. I have an Irish passport. I wanted this so I could remain in the EU after Brexit. In 1993, I attended a trade show where a competitor of the company I was then with announced they were launching a website. The impact of the internet struck me. I realized this was going to be the future. So when I left in 1995 to form my own company, Aware, one of the first things I did was to build a website. I think I was in the first 100,000 websites out there. I gave talks on using the internet for finding information, now known as open source intelligence, or OSINT. In 2023, when ChatGPT launched, I had a sense of deja vu. And I realized this is the future. I'm not scared of AI. I've immersed myself in looking at how AI can be used for all sorts of things, looking at Jewish aspects. What's the Rabbonim say about the Parsha of the week? Much easier than any other way. Research, cooking recipes. I now, whenever I cook for Shabbat, I put into AI what ingredients I have, and it comes up with some really good recipes. If anyone wants to cook with quince, a chicken recipe, come to me. Travel planning, much more. And recently vibe coding, which is like one of the buzzwords. I've led workshops and training sessions on using AI for research and try to keep up to date, although things are changing really fast, so it's kind of tough. We have a boisterous mutt who needs at least an hour's walk, and it's my role to give him this as I work from home. So 10,000 steps a day is easy.
Could you draw to a close? You've gone over the time.
My wife, Susie, is an intervention teacher at Saxe Parashah Primary School in Finchley. I'm an amateur genealogist, and I know about all my great-great-grandparents, and some branches of my family go back 1,000 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Charlotte Lippman on Zoom. Charlotte Lippman. Is Charlotte there? Charlotte Libman.
Do you want to move on to the next one?
No. Right, we go to Saul Sutcliffe, who's here, hopefully. Yes. Right.
Firstly, thanks everyone for giving us this time to introduce ourselves, and in particular Rob Sassoon for organising this whole programme. My name's Saul Sutcliffe. I'm a new deputy for the Union of Jewish Students, one of 12 actually, and I'm just coming to the end of my university experience, having submitted my dissertation only last night, so bear with me a little bit if I'm finishing. I grew up in Edinburgh as well as studying there, and I was the only Jew in my school. So coming to university and finding JSOC and UJS really genuinely felt like finding a Jewish community for me for the first time. And meeting Jewish students who'd grown up in London, New York, within the bubble, you might say, contrast was really striking. They were shocked to meeting people who had never met a Jew before, and I was just really shocked to meet Jews at all. So becoming part of JSOC, serving on committee, and being part of UJS more broadly has really changed my relationship with Judaism and community as a whole, and taking on some of those leadership positions and opportunities like serving on the board have given me something I think I'm really going to carry with me, and has changed my life, really. My first year at university was largely that adjustment, but sadly coming to second year, October 7th, then happened, and things really did change. A mere week after the attacks on October the 12th, a group of students I was friendly with called me and two others into a room and asked that they wanted us to confirm whether we saw what was happening in Gaza as genocide. If we couldn't, they said they would never speak to us again. It was a really difficult experience, but sadly one that's really too common across university campuses, and many students who are speaking to will have experienced something similar. But despite this and how hard it's been for many of the time years, I really don't want to leave you with the impression that sometimes comes across in the press that universities are simply havens of anti-Semitism with kippah being ripped off outside the library. That's not at all what I found more broadly. Edinburgh JSOC and UJS has really continued to grow and thrive throughout all these hard times, recently hosting a 200-strong Friday night, Scotland-wide Friday night dinner with the First Minister. While a small number of disruptive students can cause serious harm and be very difficult to deal with, I think we all need to remember that the majority of the student and the wider body in the UK are friendly, curious, and genuinely interested in engaging with Judaism and Jewish life, even if there might be some prejudice born of ignorance rather than malice. I think it's a distinction worth making, and I think that's why the outreach work at the board in UJS and things like Jewish Culture Month we were hearing about earlier are so important in terms of building allies in universities and beyond. So thank you so much for offering time to introduce myself today, and I really look forward to working with you all throughout my time on the board.
I'm advised that Charlotte is online. After all, it's down as Charlotte Peakle. So Charlotte.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Great. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Peakle, and I am the new and first ever deputy for Kehilat Ozion, also known as Manchester Masorti Synagogue. I've got two grown-up children, and I'm a new grandma. I have recently retired from working in adult social care, where I experienced anti-Semitism, and I now have more time to be part of the Board of Deputies. I am very enthusiastic, will work hard, and I'm very willing to learn. And I've also booked to go to Edinburgh. I'm interested in all aspects of the board's works and look forward to getting involved where I can. Being assigned a buddy to answer my questions was a great help. Thank you to Ruth Friedman. My main concern is combating and eliminating anti-Semitism seen everywhere in the UK, and it just feels as though it's getting worse. I'd also like to tell you a little bit more about the community I represent, Kehilat Ozion. We're the newest Masorti community and the first Masorti presence in Manchester in over a decade. We've blossomed over the last 18 months from having held our first service in a community centre in South Manchester just before Hanukkah 2024 with a dozen people, to now holding fortnightly services with over double that number. We've found new Siddurim and Humashim that reflect our embrace of halakha as well as egalitarianism. We've received our first Sefer Torah from our friends at the Memorial Scrolls Trust, and we have now also started kids' activities led by wonderful members of Noam, the Mazorti Youth Movement. With time, we hope to be able to provide even more to our members and other communities within the Mazorti family and across South Manchester. Our name Kehilat Zion was chosen because of our strong Zionist values, and we are proud to be a community made up of members from all backgrounds where we incorporate Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and Mizrahi Judaism into each of our services. Our board have also been involved in a Mazorti mission to Israel in December 2024, in planning Yom Mazorti, the upcoming Mazorti gathering in May, and are proud to be members of the Greater Manchester Jewish Representative Council. Over the last 18 months, we've received a huge support from Mazorti itself, as well as from members and leadership of the other Mazorti communities in the north and across the country. And I'm excited at the opportunities to find new friends and partners in other synagogues and groups across the whole of the Jewish community so that we can work together for the betterment of all British Jews. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Simon Hennig.
Thank you. My name is Simon Hennig. I'm a deputy for Newcastle Reform Synagogue. I've also previously served as an elected councillor for 26 years in County Durham, where I was leader of the council for 13 of those 26 years. Now, I should explain that I'm a newish deputy, having served for 18 months or so. When deciding whether or not to speak, I took to heart the advice of a very long-standing councillor in County Durham when I was first elected, whose advice was, say nout for your first term and you'll be okay. Now, given that a council term is 4 years, which is actually longer than a Board of Deputies term, I reckon I'm not doing badly to have spoken within 2 years. Now, I come from a family who have previously been heavily involved both in their communities and Jewish communities, where I grew up in Lancaster and also previously in Leicester. And I have a particular interest also in some of our smallish communities, probably not surprisingly given my upbringing. Where I should add that when I was growing up in Lancaster, a visit by Malcolm Wiseman was regarded as a state visit. What I did want to talk about a little bit was my support and excitement about Jewish Culture Month, and maybe the feeling that we should celebrate Jewish culture, history, our present and our future, maybe a little bit more than we do. Maybe in our own meetings as well. You know, what about focusing on a region or community at each meeting? I always find our regional meetings very interesting. I always find I learn something from that, and maybe we should reflect that more across the piece. But I know, like many others, I'm very much looking forward to Jewish Culture Month. But I did very much want to spend my last minute just paying tribute to Lord Jeremy Beecham, an outstanding example of Jewish public life, who died last week. Described by the Newcastle Chronicle on Friday as among the most influential politicians in modern British history. He was a councillor in Newcastle for 55 years, leader for 17, the longest serving leader in Newcastle's history, first chair of the Local Government Association in England from 1997 to 2004. That was a newly unified body which Jeremy helped set up, and he's still its longest serving chair. Chaired the Labour Party and its conference in 2006 and a member of the House of Lords for a decade from 2010. His contribution was immense
not just to Newcastle, but nationally. He inspired a huge number of people, Jewish and non-Jewish alike, to get more involved in their communities, of which I was certainly one. May his memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would just add to that briefly that I knew Jeremy Beecham as well when I was in local government, and after that when I was in Parliament, I was in the Commons, he was in the House of Lords, and he was a giant figure and helped a lot of people over a very long period. So thank you very much to all of our new speakers, or relatively new speakers. Thank you for that. We now turn to an item with your opportunity to speak on a very, very important issue, and perhaps very controversial as well, and it's an open forum. And the topic now is the current situation in Israel, Iran, and the wider Middle East. And Adrian and Phil are going to open this session. We'll then put it to the floor for you to comment, to ask questions, whatever you wish to do within the time limits, and then Phil will close the debate later on. So I'm going to first ask Phil to start this.
Thank you, Chair. We thought this was really important to extend the meeting to have a further discussion about this, because the last 6 weeks have been so packed with developments in Israel, Iran, and the wider region. We really wanted to get deputies' sense of this. That includes, of course, the US-Israeli war with Iran, the attacks by Hezbollah and the Houthis on Israel, and Israel's response, including the ongoing conflict in Lebanon. And across the world, really, in Jewish communities, we've seen this rise of anti-Semitism, including here with the arson attack against Hatzalah ambulances. That conflict globalized and anti-Semitism spread. We know that currently there is talk of, there is a ceasefire and difficult negotiations, I understand, that weren't successful in Pakistan between the US and Iran. And on Tuesday, a really important series of direct talks between Israel and Lebanon, not just on a ceasefire and disarming Hezbollah, but on the possibility of direct normalization of relations between Israel and Lebanon, which would be an incredibly positive development. At the same time this has all been going on, there have in Israel and the Palestinian territories been some serious developments as well, which I know deputies have been watching. Of course, in Gaza, tit-for-tat violence continues as we talk about whether Hamas can and will be disarmed, which is important. We've also seen really intolerable levels of violence by extremist settlers in the West Bank, and indeed Palestinian terrorists attacking Jewish communities there as well. And we've seen the disgraceful death penalty law, apparently discriminatory in its application. Now, we've spoken up on a number of these issues, but we felt that this moment, with so much happening, it was really important to get the range of views of deputies to guide our thinking on this in the weeks and months ahead. Now, deputies, we understand that we are a diverse community and there will likely be a range of different views. And I would just encourage you to hear each other with respect. You will probably hear things that you disagree with, possibly quite profoundly. But I think we are all strengthened when we hear the views and opinions of people who all come at this with a deep care for the Jewish people and for the Jewish state, although coming at it from perhaps different angles. So in that spirit, I'm going to first of all ask Adrian to speak a bit about the work we've done to hear some of your views in the meantime, but really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Phil. Adrian.
Thank you very much, Louise and Phil. I'm not going to speak very long. Phil's really foreshadowed all of the issues that there are. But just to say, I'm very conscious that Israel is very much in a state of war. It has been, by my calculations, for 918 days since October 7th, 23, and on multiple fronts. And Israel faces implacable enemies who have been able to adapt and to continue to present themselves as a threat to the country, and with an intent to try and destroy the very state of Israel and to attack Jewish people across the world. That war that's been fought has not been helped by the extreme right-wing members of the government coalition who, as we know, have repeatedly said things which have undermined the war effort and played into the hands of our enemies. And as Phil mentioned, there is the deplorable death penalty is really the latest emanation of that. But there's also the settler violence has been mentioned, And the problem is that it's the fact that it's been acquiesced in, or perhaps even inspired by the Minister for National Security, and that's a major systemic problem that we have here. The other thing is, for those who saw it, it hasn't had as much publicity, but towards the end of last week, 34 new settlements were announced in the mostly in area, or entirely in Area C of Judea Samaria, the West Bank, which again puts greater pressure on the situation. This government, since 2000, been in office since 2022, has approved a record 103 settlements. The issue there is also to note, however, that very few of those have actually gone through the civil planning procedures of the administration, so it's very difficult to know what the actual facts on the ground are in terms of erosion of the ability to work towards ultimately towards some kind of resolution or settlement. But all of this really it weighs on us. We're here because we care for the best. We're passionate about the future of the state of Israel and for the people of Israel. And we're also conscious of the fact that we're not living there under constant threat, and we're not fighting Israel's wars. And as a diaspora community, that's always been important, and that weighs very heavily with me in what I do say, feel able to say. But it is, as Phil says, there are global implications of what's going on, and we do our best to advocate for Israel. And in the process of advocating for Israel, we also know the things that most undermine our ability to do so. So at times there's a feeling that we need to speak quite frankly about these things. So it's really within that spirit that we have introduced this forum for open discussion, and I do look forward to the contributions. We have a further session this week coming up at the International Division, where we have Efrat Perry from the Israeli Embassy, who's a regular attendee at our sessions of division. Very much looking forward to her speaking, which will be further opportunity for considered discussion. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Adrian. And if anybody wants to speak, would they please come up to the mic? Yes, speak.
Yes, Denise.
No, sorry, Denise. There's somebody here.
Sorry.
First, Denise. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
actually, it's a point of order. It's a point of order. Actually, Denise Lester, Southampton Synagogue. Our meeting is public. We're on a live stream feed, but it's recorded. We're not. We're not.
No, we're not. It's not live.
Thank you. That's exactly what the reassurance
Okay.
I wanted to see.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
You can be reassured.
We're very careful.
Yeah. Right. I call the first speaker. Yes. Yes.
Wait. Sorry. It's not live. It could be published. It is. Okay, just to clarify, as we do not stream this live. However, there may be journalists online. They are invited to join, so people should be aware of that. There is the facility for us to edit some of the footage before we publish it. We tend to prefer not to do that. I think it's important our constituents and our communities hear from us and see these debates. I had a previous version of the discussion completely off line and non-published, although it did make its way into the papers anyway, and a lot of what was said out. So I would ask people to speak with that in mind, being cognizant of the fact that what they say can be reported. We would like to publish it because I think actually the debates we've had in the past have been in very, very high quality and an important barometer of where the community is. So I ask people to speak in that spirit.
And the time limit is 90 seconds. Right, first.
Robert Shaw, Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue. My analysis, what I wanted to focus on is the impact on Jews in the UK on the basis the Board of Deputies of British Jews, and not try and legislate on it that might be perceived as foreign policy. Analysis by Ashley Rinsberg in the JC has highlighted what it characterises as large-scale coordinated online effort, potentially involving actors aligned with the Iranian regime, operating at an industrial scale and digital speed, and extending into widely used knowledge platforms such as Wikipedia. Alongside that, we can see ongoing disputes, protections and arbitration on key pages related to Jews, Israel, and Zionism. And we know that these platforms are increasingly treated as authoritative by students, journalists, and even AI systems. If distortions take hold there, they can impact on the whole Jewish community in the UK, and it's not theoretical. It can shape understanding in education, public discourse, and civil life in ways that are difficult to unwind. We've also seen in other contexts, such as engagement with the BBC, how a structured evidence-led approach can make a real difference when working within editorial systems. And this is in the context of the conflict. Can you please share how the board is thinking about this challenge, what step it's taking within its own control to strengthen the evidence base, support constructive engagement with these platforms, and help ensure that accurate and balanced narratives are reflected over time?
Thank you. Right, Philip Goldenberg, online. Yes, Philip.
It's just coming off mute.
Yes, be unmuted.
We can't hear you.
Yes, be unmuted. Can tech team unmute Philip?
Right, that got me. Can I start by sharing with Phil and everybody else? When he did his Newsnight interview on Kanye West, the original invitee was me because Newsnight said they'd got my name from the Chief Rabbi's office. I told them I thought they'd probably got the wrong person. President, you've rightly called out the appalling level of settler violence on the West Bank, to which the Israeli government has at best turned a blind eye and at worst facilitated. But you've tended to do so sotto voce, in meetings which should be sympathetic or in meetings of this board. Now, you know as a PR professional that you could fire much bigger guns, and I'm now pleading with you to do so. Let me give you an idea, a proposal, that you should organize a delegation of yourself and other Jewish leaders to go to the West Bank, to meet with the Palestinian Authority, to meet with victims of settler violence, and then go and meet President Herzog and share your concerns. That would really hit the public domain in a way in which so far the board has not on this issue.
Right. Thank you. And next speaker, now, as I said at the beginning, I want people who haven't spoken before to have priority. And I think there's one person at least who hasn't. If you wish to, you can be next.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Mackenzie Holland. I'm from Leighton Stone and Wanstead. I don't need to tell anybody that several ambulances were attacked recently. I have had repeated death threats made to me by telephone, over the internet. Over the past year, the police have not been around in a year. They will not respond. We now have a position where we're essentially undefended most of the time, unless it is so public that the police have to act. I'm an ex-professional soldier. I'm not afraid, but we have elderly parishioners who are very, very afraid. The police won't act, and they won't act because they know we're never going to do anything. We're easy targets, because no matter how you push, we take the easy route. We say, it's okay, we're going to trust in you, police, because that's the way civilized people act. And it is the way civilized people act, and we must carry on doing it. But do realize the police are only interested in keeping the peace, and they won't act as long as we stay quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean-Vier Palmer, online. Jean-Vier.
Sorry, it's very moving. We know as Jews that we have a wide range of opinion. We have spoken within the community and in spaces like these, and we know that there is this sort of very wide range. However, because they are not followed up by public statements, the wider community, the wider British community, is not aware of that diversity. And I think that is more of a concern than how we within the Jewish community feel we are well aware of all the different ranges of opinions. What we need to be doing more is showing to the wider community that there is a range of opinions on this matter as well as others.
Okay, thank you. Right, next speaker.
Richard Cooper, Portsmouth and South Sea Hebrew Congregation. Israel has got a world of enemies. Let us not join them by thinking that we are, to use a phrase I do not like, critical friends. We may be tempted to make knee-jerk responses to things that we see on the news. I would urge us all not to make those knee-jerk responses, but to think carefully and to go into and to investigate these things that we disapprove of. I support the people of Israel, the government of Israel, and the IDF, and I will always continue to do so. I will never join any group that demands that I vote against people like Smotrich or Ben-Gvir. And I would just urge people, please just take some time and think and investigate fully before condemning.
Thank you. Gerald Fox online. Gerald Fox.
I have unmuted. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Gerald Fox, Bedfordshire Progressive Synagogue. I don't know if you heard it this morning, but Ed Sturton was on Radio 4 this morning describing his views of what was going on in the West Bank. And to my surprise, not only are the Palestinians being attacked by settlers, but now the Christian communities are as well, which sounds very disturbing to me. It suggests that the right-wing elements in Israel now want to try and totally destroy any chance of a two-state solution. I don't know what the board's opinion is of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, next speaker. Yes.
Okay, it's still Michael Reich from Mosaic Reform Synagogue. I'm very concerned to see where the war is going to end, to be perfectly honest. I am not a supporter of Netanyahu. I have met Netanyahu for many reasons. I don't like the gentleman. And it seems to me his whole way that he operates is to look after himself. 40 years ago, he made the decision he was going to fight Iran. Not now. It was around the same time that the Entebbe situation took place. He's always been in a situation he wants to have Israel to be very much its own self, the Jews there very much as a Jewish community and not really looking after any of the other people within the country. I'm very concerned about how we are going to be affected if this war doesn't stop. We, the Jewish community, not here but all over the world, because if the effect of the energy crisis and everything goes with it, it will go directly on Israel's back, that they are the cause of that. So I'm just very concerned. Also, the final point is that Netanyahu, I think, is doing an awful lot of this to try to make sure he's re-elected again in October. It's not something, he's not interested in Israel as such, he's only interested in himself.
Right, next speaker, who's next? Oh, yes.
Jonathan Waxman, Hampstead Garden Suburb. It's just a short reflection on Yom HaShoah. I have in my mind a picture of a little boy in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943 with his hands up, with Nazis pointing guns at him and his sister. And I think of the remarkable courage of the Jewish people over 80 years, that we're no longer defenseless, that we're able to stand on our own 2 feet against a sea of enemies. I understand we have a diverse range of views, but I think we can all reflect on that small miracle that happened during our lifetimes. Wish everyone well.
Thank you. Flora online.
Sorry, Mr. Shemina, Flora Frank, Mr. Shemina. I think it was very important what Phil said, and everybody else has mentioned, Adrian Cohen as well, that we all have very different opinions and we have to respect each other. I spend a lot of time in Israel. I have a large family who live in Yehuda v'Shomron, and I'm very much against settler violences, and so are they. And I've spoken to my daughter about it, and I say, you know, what do you say about it? Mum, it's often that she also, that most, I would tell you, 99% of this, of what you call the settlers, which are people in Israel, do not agree with it. So I want you to know that it's disgusting what they do. It's not right. It's immoral what they're doing. But, you know, people are provoked, and that's not an excuse, and I'm not saying it is. But the point I want to make is, I've been here the last 3.5 weeks, and I've been running up and down to the miklat downstairs. All right, thank God I can do it. But little babies, mother with 4 or 5 children, pregnant, she just gave birth a few days ago. You know, Adrian Cohen said something very, very important. You are not living here. I'm not really living here, but I am living here. You do not know, for 40 years, there's been 9 wars against us, and each one was not from our doing. We want to live in peace. I want you to know that most people, and they're all for the government, there's hardly a person I have spoken to, and that's why I'm generalizing, who doesn't agree with the war. They want it to go on. Many people didn't want the ceasefire. I think you should know this. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with it. I want peace. I don't want ceasefire. I don't want to be running in and out of shelters everywhere I've been going. I mean, I'll tell you personally, it's should have been a nightmare, but thank God I'm
Could you
quite
conclude your
resilient.
remarks, Flora?
But it's very, very important that we do try and accept what somebody says. When they say, I'm for Smotrich or Ben Gvir, I'm not for them. But we must respect it, because we do have different opinions, and we must put ourselves where they are. That is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next speaker, who's next? Yes. Right.
Toby Millis, Under 35 Observer, Bromley Reform Synagogue. I've written a blog on Substack about everything recently in terms of Jewish and Israel. I could talk about the term blue in the face rather than just the jumper. But I'm just going to read the last paragraph because of time. It says, read. In times of oppression, when people are enslaved, the first thing their oppressors do is stop their subservience from reading. Instead of peace through strength, a term coined by the United States President, my 3 words are knowledge is power. Libraries are valuable. Books are valuable. They are portals into other people's worlds. And I know this because I read that exact quote recently in books by Rabbi Sachs. I cannot seem to put them down and wish this for everyone else. Put down your weapons. Pick up more books and then put down your fears of the outside world. It is scary. This is true. But, and this is the only time in the blog where I use the word but, together we can be an unstoppable force for good, for love, for peace, and of course, for life.
Right. Judith.
Hello, Judith Prinsley from Muswell Hill Synagogue. It's been particularly challenging for us, and it seems to be getting more challenging. And we're trying to hang on to what we can that is working. And we've seen definitely a further increase in Muswell Hill, in Haringey, with various graffiti and incidents. So what can we do? I am hanging on to things, but it's really paying, I think, help, is our partnerships. So we have a really good partnership with our police. It's direct. We've seen positive action, but it's because we've built them up. Also with our education partners. So again, recently when we had the incident with the Hatzalah ambulance, we could reach out to them and say to them, please, with the Director of Education, send something around to all those schools, particularly some of the schools who've got Israeli kids in their school, and we need to keep pushing. And at times it is difficult. They need to hear what we're saying. Now, it's small steps, but it is getting through there. And the fact that teachers in particular schools, they're very busy. That just because we see things about Hatzalah doesn't mean they do. So I really feel that's been a help. And thank you to Andrew, Garfield, and Adrian in our community, because we worked across our communities. It's speaking out positively and getting to know your partners. Thank you.
Yes. Next person.
Debbie Barnett, St Albans Masorti Synagogue. With respect to Rick Cooper, it is much harder to be a critical friend than to simply accept the status quo. If we think back to when we were younger, I'm sure we all had that friend who had who was in a completely unsuitable relationship, and we didn't say anything to them because we didn't want to be a critical friend. Harry Lampert and Jonathan Wittenberg and Phil have all referred today to the outrageous legislation that is being proposed in the Knesset. And I would hope that one point of agreement that we can have is that this is totally antithetical to Jewish values and to decent morality, and that we can stand up against that.
Right, thank you. Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Right. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Keith Myers. I'm speaking just for me, not on behalf of Edgware United. I'm very concerned that the board now has a policy which is outdated, which is the two-state solution. It was a great aspiration at the time, but since October the 7th particularly, support in Israel has plummeted. I just looked up, in 2013 it was 50%, and last year it was down to about 20% and lower among Jewish Israelis. This surely makes it better now to have a policy which is for peace and security for all the communities there, rather than a specific policy that has a vanishingly small likelihood of achievement in the next few decades. On this basis, I would like to have a longer discussion at the board to come up with a policy which is more practical and something that can be supported more widely.
Thank you. Clive Lawton online. Clive Lawton.
Hello, Clive Lawton from Bristol Hebrew Congregation. I have a daughter living in Israel. Obviously, we worry about their vulnerabilities and running, as was said before, running back and forth to shelters is not anything anybody wishes, either for your own family, for your wider Jewish family, or indeed for lots of other people who don't have any shelters at all, because Hamas rather built tunnels than shelters. However, I don't pretend either that I could say to the Israeli government, look, this is the best course of action given the enemies you're surrounded by and the implacable rhetoric, at least. Who knows what the reality is behind the rhetoric? But what I can say, and I'm very pleased to have heard it said to some degree by the leadership of the board, is I hate the gleeful language with which horrible things are being done. To say at least, I am reluctant to have to do this, but what else can we do in the circumstances? We don't want to damage people, but we're not given a choice in this matter. I want to hear some kind of morality in this process, some expression of commitment, concern, or love of the Jewish tradition. You cannot pretend to represent or stand for the Jewish people if you are entirely non-Jewish. These guys, especially the right-wing, hard right of the Israeli government, are embarrassing, and they would have been prevented from joining the government before recent compromises by Netanyahu to bring them in and create his coalition.
Right. Thank you. And next speaker here. Colin.
Colin Gray is in New North London Synagogue, but speaking in entirely personal capacity. I also have a daughter in Israel, just so that you know. That's not the point I want to make. I want to talk about a very short point, collective responsibility. In the UK, we've all grown up believing if you're a member of the government, you say what the government says. And embarrassingly, government ministers on the Today programme say things you know they don't believe in, but that's literally the party line. When you talk to people in Israel, they don't understand the concept of collective responsibility. And the problem is that the BBC doesn't understand that they don't understand it. So last week, a spokesman from the Embassy of Israel came on and was asked, not entirely surprisingly, what do you say about what Smotrich and or Ben-Gvir are saying? And he said, it's not the policy of the Israeli government, which is true. But that doesn't wash with the BBC because they don't understand that there is no collective responsibility in Israel. A very short point, can the embassy be told that there is that distinction between the British approach and the Israeli approach and somehow deal with it?
Mark Drucker online.
Someone referred to the interview with Ed Staunton this morning. Ed Staunton finished his interview by saying, we've asked the Israeli embassy for comment, implying there's the Israeli embassy didn't say anything. I think, that is a very anti-Israel program anyway, every week, but I think that the Israeli embassy, because we can't do as much PR as the Israeli embassy, and I think they should do a lot more than they do.
Right. Thank you. Right, I'm now going to ask Phil to respond.
Well, Deputies, I'm really glad we had that discussion. I think it was a really elevated and constructive series of contributions from people with a range of different views, but actually pointing and pushing towards some similar kinds of themes. I think in a world of polarization, of messy and combative conversation, we are left to hold two concurrent thoughts that many people seem unable to hold. The first is that Israel has the right to expect it deserves security. And it is not enough for people to simply say, oh yes, Hezbollah, Hamas should be disarmed. They need to act to disarm Hezbollah and Hamas. At the same time, that there are principal values that are absolutely embedded in the Declaration of Independence, in every founding document of Zionism, which are not currently being lived out by Israel's government. And we need to be able to hold those two thoughts in our head at one time. Now, inevitably, given the diversity of the community, some people will think we don't speak out enough. Some people will think we speak out too much. We're constantly riding that balance, and conversations like this are helpful in terms of defining it. I think colleagues rightly said that Israelis, particularly Israeli ministers of the right, tend to be annoyed by people who describe themselves as critical friends. We're not critical friends, we're family. And that means a deeper, more intense relationship with Israel. That means that we share in its joys, we mourn in its losses, and sometimes we have the disappointment that family has towards other family in that way. In policy terms, what this means is the following. In our conversations with the UK government, we are going to continue to campaign robustly for Israel's security. That means seeing Iran as the threat that it is. The campaign for the prescription of the IRGC will continue unabated. It is unacceptable that they remain unprescribed in the country. In Lebanon, we want to see Hezbollah disarmed. We want the UK government to lean into the current talks for a normalization of Israel, which would be a huge blessing to both countries and to the region. But it is no longer enough for them to say, disarm Hezbollah, disarm Hamas, as kind of an afterthought statements criticizing Israel. They actually need to show what they're going to do it. And in the West Bank, and I'll say a bit more about this in a minute, of course it's right that there should be accountability for Israel and for extremist violent settlers, should be accountability. We also need to see reform of the Palestinian Authority, who continue in forms that pay for slave policy, who continue incitement. We need to see all that changed as well. And to the Israeli government, and indeed to different political leaders in Israel, to the government, the opposition, to civil society, our message is do better, do a lot better. Cannot see the things that we're seeing because simply, friends, we cannot defend the indefensible. We will not defend the indefensible. And some of the things we've seen in terms of the West Bank, in terms of this discriminatory death penalty, are unacceptable. We will not defend them. Similarly, it's really important to say this, that in 6 months, a maximum, Israel will go to the elections. And Israel's international standing is on the ballot. And I thought this was put very well by one of the last speakers, if we continue to see Smotrich and Veer speaking on behalf of the Israeli government as ministers, even if that's not the government policy officially, that will continue to degrade Israel's standing in the world. Different political leaders need to understand that. They need to understand that some critics of Israel come from a place of anti-Semitism, no doubt about that. But others generally want Israel to succeed and thrive and are appalled by betrayal of the Western democratic values that we have for so long held up as one of Israel's greatest strengths. So continue to do all of those things. I thank you for your ongoing engagement. I thank you for the thoughtful ways that you've presented today. I'm really glad we had this discussion. Thank you.
And I'd just like to thank everyone for the way in which what is a very difficult debate has been conducted with very serious points raised by different deputies, and thank Phil and the honorary officers as well for the way in which they're dealing with these very difficult issues on a day-to-day basis, and thank you to everyone. Well, now we come to a celebratory item. Jerry Lewis. Jerry, where are you? You here? All right, Jerry.
I want to say a quick word about this.
Yes, right. Phil.
While Jerry's coming up, I just wanted to say where the genesis of this. I was talking to Jerry and I discovered that our father, the board, was coming to his 50th year as a deputy. And for me, this is just such a remarkable contribution. Recently, as you'll know, Jerry's had some health challenges, and I visited him in a hospital. We were all very anxious about his situation. And I messaged him just before I came to visit to say, Jerry, is there anything you want me to bring, anything you need? He said, Phil, 1 minute at plenaries is just not enough. He said, we need to extend it. So, first of all, that was very reassuring. But I also thought, you know what, as a special tribute, we'll give Jerry 10 minutes on the clock to address us as we go. And I'm really, really excited that we have the father of the board, Jerry, to speak to us now.
As Jerry makes his way up to the front here, I just add to that and say I think that Jerry has a remarkable combination of knowledge and attributes. You know, Board of Deputies for 50 years, exceptional knowledge of Israel. He seems to know everybody who decides anything in Israel over a very long time, and detailed knowledge of how Parliament and government works, and to bring all those together to benefit the community, I think is a wonderful thing to have been able to do for so long. So, Jerry, the floor is yours, but there is a time limit. It's not 1 minute. Jerry.
First of all, I want to... Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. As if you don't know. First of all, I want to thank the board for the lovely Kiddush, but most of all for this special few moments. It's very rare that we have an opportunity in the board to celebrate such an event. I want to give a special thanks to Hashem and to my partner, Leora Schachter. I've had a life-changing 3 months. I've just started dialysis. I can't say I enjoy it, it's very tough. And my health has changed so much, I can't do all the things I used to do, and I find life quite tough. I was surprised when I saw on the agenda that the meeting was going on for an extra hour. So I've prepared an hour-long speech. I'm very glad to see that common sense has prevailed and that more time was given today for some speeches. It makes it for a much better meeting. It gives a chance for enhanced deputy involvement. And I hope that we can go further and go up to, say, 2 or 2.5 minutes, because it gives chance to people who are less gifted to be able to make their speeches. I'm not saying that I am gifted, but others are less gifted and need more time to develop an argument
or put a case. I'm proud of my time at the board, but it's akin to being married. Years of strife, arguments, numerous happy times, and building of some very deep, long-lasting friendships. I go back to the days of Sir Sammy Fisher, the former Mayor of Camden, Michael Fiddler, Greville Janner, Israel Feinstein, Lionel Kopolowitz, Eldred Tabachnik, and my friend Henry Grunwald. I could go on, but I don't want to embarrass some of the people here. I battled with them all. But it's been generally on very friendly terms, and I made some wonderful friendships, as I say. But I've got to praise the staff.
Yeah.
The staff of this board are the foot soldiers. People like David Massell, a name that people wouldn't know, Nat Levy, and loads of poorly paid foot soldiers who did a lot of work, younger folk who cut their communal teeth in this organisation. A shout out for the late Martin Frey, a very, very special, extraordinary staffer. And Mr. Lee, you are in his shadow, but you're doing a job to the very same abilities that Martin had. We had in him such an exceptional person. He sadly passed away from motor neurone disease, but he was wonderful. My original meetings were attended by those of 300, sometimes even 400 deputies at Woburn House. Many of them were tempestuous, fascinating, lengthy, and I learned one thing, which is a message to everybody: learn to stay to the end of a meeting. Otherwise you miss out and you don't know what you're going to miss. We used to go through every committee report line by line, which enabled detailed debate and fuller accountability than we have now. It was always my keynote to say principles of transparency. God, 5 minutes already, bloody hell. Transparency, accountability, and democracy until one reaches the top table. When you're on the top table, all that goes out the window. But to do that, we need more time to make a case and not just to offer a few slogans. It's unfair on those less gifted people, as I said. And it also allows time for something we get rarely now, heckling, and my favourite, points of order. I've had many achievements, far too many to mention, but I'm proudest of my response on how to engage younger people, i.e. the under-35s. The under-35s initiative went against tremendous opposition, and it has shown it does work and has brought in more young people, but we need to do more promotion of it. But other innovations, an independent chair like Louise and Karen. We've had hustings, postal votes, and most important of all, any deputy can attend any division meeting with the chair's permission. More needs to be done, but by consensus, not by streamlining, but giving more opportunities for debate. We used to have the chance to do a reference back of a debate or something, a topic. Deputies need the opportunities, which we don't seem to have today, to raise issues which at the moment don't necessarily appear on an agenda. The type of question being, well, why haven't you considered this or looked at that? It's a delicate balance to reflect Anglo jury's diverse views, and there's always been problems with it, even when I was an officer. I did 1 term as senior vice president, 2 terms as a regular vice president, running the community issues, which is the heart, the soul of the board. Diplomacy is never easy. There are crises all the time, and you need a team to manage them and create an atmosphere that is unifying for our community. Phil has done an excellent job, and we owe you a hell of a lot over these tough weeks. Just a couple of highlights. I'm well aware of time problems. I worked with June Jacobs to persuade Israel Feinstein, then president, to meet Yasser Arafat. I had met Yasser Arafat, and the whole idea was to persuade Arafat to understand why he needed to condemn terrorism, not to give him glory or anything else. It worked. Not that he abolished his connections with terrorism, but we made our views known. Jewish Women's Aid, I'll never forget, one of my colleague officers, who has to remain nameless, said, why are you having a speaker for Jewish Women's Aid? There's no problem. It's only the Orthodox communities where there's wife beating and all the rest of it. I said to him, little do you know, it's right across the community. And I learned one thing from being a security officer. You go into any shul, go into the ladies' toilets, on the back of the door, big poster, Jewish Women's Aid. But there are men too who get abused. And the speaker we had that day put that issue on the map, thank God. We've had a women's group. Now, I set that up when I saw the bullying, and I shall say no more about it, but the bullying of one of my colleagues, Flo Kaufman, was receiving as the treasurer of the board. And the bullying by some of my colleagues was a disgrace. And I decided, let's have a women's group. We set it up. Susan Pascoe was involved and a couple of others. It was fantastic. And it's gone and reached now a much higher position than it used to be in the board, and I'm very glad. I've got plenty of beans to spill, but I've promised there's no book in me. So I just don't want to be sued, especially by the large cohort of people in Bushy. The biggest thing which I subscribe to is the Constitution and standing orders. It's my bedtime reading. But I'm proud of all the numerous constitutional changes introduced by me, despite loads of fierce opposition. Many deputies enjoyed the jostling, but I single-handedly dragged the board from the 1900s into the 2000 era. And I want to thank colleague Eleanor Platt, Eleanor Lind, and others who helped me. And I've got to also thank Vicky Harris as well. I was named the conscience of the board by Eleanor, and I've always worked on the principle. I might not get everything right, but the principles I enshrine are for the betterment of the board. Almost finished. There is a sad decline in the attendance of plenary sessions post-COVID. I would like us to go back to having a system by which we are required to attend unless there are extenuating circumstances. I think it's wrong that people can just skive off coming to a meeting when really we should be here to debate and participate. The Kiddush initiative, excellent. Kolokavo to you, Phil, for putting into words and practice what I had suggested many years back. I'm very, very grateful that we should have some social activity. I used to head the General Election Committee with Eric Mooman, who I paid tribute to, and we did a lot of work canvassing the views of candidates. We now have proper manifestos, superb. But we do need more deputy involvement. Being parts of a delegation to government, to CMPs, local authorities, is not just a staff prerogative. And I praise here David Katz, sitting modestly at the back, for the tremendous work he does on Shechita and medical issues for us as a board, as a deputy. I would like to suggest we need to be told what meetings are coming up, unless there's got to be discretion, so that we can put forward ideas what we would like you to say at the top table. I use my role in the Commons Press Gallery, where I'm also father of the Press Gallery, to assist the board and hopefully for the benefit of the board and the community. And my one comment on that is, and I've almost finished, there is a dearth, a very sad dearth now, of politically active Jews. Yes, we have one MP amongst our number, two, Luciana, she is in Parliament. But we've got Princely, and that's basically what we've got, and it's a great, great shame. Final thoughts. I did stints at the World Jewish Congress. I did a period at the BBC World Service as a senior press officer, and my extensive knowledge of the BBC culture has allowed us as a community to shape the communal response. I don't want to say too much about it because I've done things behind the scenes, but much of the good work that this board does is necessarily behind the scenes, and we can't express, if you've been on the top table, you will know about it, what goes on, how it goes on, and why. But it's a very onerous task, and each of you honorary officers put in so much extra time. I knew how much time I put in. If you're doing to do the job properly, you've got to be dedicated, and I'm full of admiration for the way this team has worked over this period of time. I know where the bodies are buried, besides Bushy, but we as a board have a vital role to play. We need to be trusted, and we need to be given more tools to enable us to do the job even better. I end with one little amusing anecdote. Phil, you challenged me to come up with amusing stories. I can't. I'm not a humorist like that. But there was one particular Friday, we got a desperate call. I was still on the executive in those days. There was a serious incident at Woburn House. And the police were called, the ambulance fire crews, everything, on a Friday afternoon, about half an hour before Shabbat. And for those, and there aren't many here, but those who do remember Woburn House, a big austere building where we used to have our meetings and our offices. And what had happened is that somebody called Lionel Kopolowitz, then president, had worked late in the office. Everybody else had gone home. He came down the stairs, and between the security doors and the outer building, he found himself locked in. And he spent 2 hours banging away. The police had to come, nobody had the keys. It was absolute fun and pandemonium. What a story. Pity it never got any further. I hope none of those things happen to the board in their new premises. Thank you for the opportunity and the time, and I wish everybody Hatzlacha, and stay, for heaven's sake, healthy.
Jerry, stay where you are. Jerry. Come back a second. I just wanted to say tribute to you for 50 amazing years at the Board of Deputies as an honorary officer, as you said, multiple terms. The various things that you've given us as a legacy. We are your children if you are the father, in terms of the Constitution, in terms of inclusion. Also, your dedicated work in Parliament and at Israel Radio, where, as you intimated, you give a lot of really helpful guidance to us, sometimes behind the scenes, really helpful advice and guidance, which I really appreciate. I remember once watching a press conference with the then Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. He'd given a very important speech, and the first name he called when he called for the press was Jerry Lewis. And I thought, that's our Jerry. It's just fantastic. And I know the esteem with which you're held, having had a wife who was a press officer at the Foreign Office, in all of those spaces, you're very much a feature and a fixture and very much beloved. I have a small gift for you on behalf of...
No way, no way. No way. Just change the constitution.
Just change the constitution. We have, Jerry, a couple of things which I think you might find appropriate. One of them we're yet to engrave, but if you pass it back to Michael, he will engrave it. Thank you very much for your service to our organisation. Many more years.
Just to give out a shout out for one name I forgot to mention, that's Ephraim Borowski.
Yeah.
For all the work he's done in Scotland. He's unwell as well. We wish him a refuah shalema.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here today and contributing. And I remind you, the May meeting is on Zoom only. And there is no meeting in June and the July meeting is in Edinburgh. Okay. Thank you.
Shall I jump up and say one?
Yeah.
Just in closing, friends, thank you very much for a very powerful meeting, diverse, constructive, and I think uplifting in many ways. As you'll be aware, the next couple of plenaries are the 17th of May, which will be online and part of Jewish Culture Month and enable you to get off and enjoy the various celebrations. And then from the 3rd to 6th July, the plenary in Edinburgh. I know someone mentioned doing more, I think it was Simon, more features of our regional communities. Please do sign up. It's going to be fantastic. Talking about a walking tour of Edinburgh, whiskey tasting. I believe we've even hired a bagpiper to pipe the deputies in for the plenary there. So really welcome. Please do sign up if you haven't already. It will be fantastic. As I mentioned the last time, I'm going to be taking a few weeks of parental leave over the next few weeks. So I'll be leaving you in the capable hands of Adrian and the team, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm back. In the meantime, Jewish Culture Month Sameach. Take care all.